How's going, guys? Welcome to the channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the immortal god sage in the Mass Effect and got harem with FemShep, Part 3. Huge shout out to Kuro Tamashi for this story. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. Anderson just looked at her carefully as she stepped forward. I sensed that you'd say something like that, that's why. Naruto, I'll leave the rest to you. After that, she took a few steps backward while Naruto took them forward. Once close, Naruto bowed slightly as he carried his right hand over his left pectoral. But before he could speak, the Turian counselor asked, "Who are you?" After hearing that, Naruto raised his head and answered, "Very good morning. First of all, I hope we can have a civil conversation where I don't have to resort to violence." Naruto began, causing the council members to squint their eyes at the words he had chosen to start the conversation. "My name is Uzumaki Naruto, leader of the elemental nations. The last shinobi and the man charged with destroying the Reapers," Naruto stated and bowed again. "The Reaper story again, I've said," the Turian counselor began to say, only to be interrupted by Naruto, who spoke. "I've heard quite clearly what you said. I understand that it's hard for you to believe that something like the Reapers could exist. But I can show to all of you that they indeed exist if I may," Naruto replied politely. That caught their attention, but somebody still thought it was nonsense. But before the other counselors could add anything else, Anderson spoke. "If this young man has a way of proving the existence of the Reapers, I vote so we can see his proof," Anderson said, initiating a vote on the council. Instantly, the other counselors looked at each other, so the next one to speak was the Turian counselor. "I vote no. I still think it's something silly and a simple fantasy story." Anderson and Shepard shook their heads due to the stubbornness of the Turian, but they said nothing and just waited for the following vote, which in this case was the Solarian counselor. "I also vote no." They shook their heads again, but Naruto just kept quiet waiting for the vote of the Asari counselor, who was silent for several seconds until she came to a decision. "If there's evidence, then we should see it. I vote yes." That brought a smile to Shepard and Anderson, but before they could celebrate anything, the Turian counselor spoke again. "It seems that we have not reached an agreement. Therefore, I think this meeting is—" But once again, he was interrupted, this time by the Solarian counselor. "Though I still don't believe that this young man can show us anything, I will give an opportunity to the woman who saved my life just to see where this goes. So, those who agree that Shepard gives her vote say yes." Instantly, Anderson and the Asari counselor said yes. Therefore, Shepard smiled and voted to see Naruto's evidence, who smiled slightly because of it. The Turian counselor just accepted the decision and did not show his disapproval. Thus, Naruto spoke. "First of all, are you able to see everything that is in this room?" he asked with a bit of insecurity. The counselors nodded, and the Asari counselor answered, "Yes, we can clearly see everything in that room." Naruto nodded and continued as he placed his hands on the tiger seal. "Very well, then you won't have any problems seeing this. So here we go, and please I ask you not to be startled by what will happen now." No one said anything, they just looked at Naruto, who after saying those words began to make several hand seals at high speed before whispering a few words that nobody could understand. The counselors and Gura strangely looked at Naruto, but their expressions changed to surprised ones when they saw the room losing shape. The walls seemed to be melting while the roof began to darken slowly until after a few seconds, they all could hear the sound of lightning. Meanwhile, those who were in the room could feel a blizzard blowing them, and slowly, everything started to take shape. They were now in another place. It was a place near a beach. It was dark, and it looked like it was about to rain. They turned around, and they could see in the distance the ruins of an ancient city. The other three counselors were amazed when seeing the sudden change that had taken place in the room. They knew it was not a simulation because the Presidium did not have that kind of technology due to security issues. However, they were surprised because Naruto had suddenly disappeared. Those who were in the room then heard that the lightning had increased in intensity. They looked up and could see that the clouds were completely black while the lightning made said clouds shine. After that, they felt with surprise as raindrops began to fall upon them. Anderson, who did not know how this could be even possible, tried to say something, only to discover that he could not speak. That took him aback, but before he could get nervous because of it, one thunderous voice was heard echoing around. "Calm down, counselor. There's nothing to fear. Now I'll show to all of you the evidence of the Reaper's existence." Everyone recognized the voice as Naruto's, who then continued talking. "A day like this, around 99,698 years ago, we commemorated the anniversary of the triumph of the elemental nations against a criminal organization that wanted to dominate my world. It had already fallen the night, and after the celebrations, everyone had gone to rest after a big party around the whole continent. Obviously, people were tired. Therefore, they all went to sleep." The counselors were extremely confused when hearing the number of years that Naruto had mentioned, and the Asari counselor wanted to ask about it, but she realized she could not speak nor move from her place. She turned her head and noticed that the other two counselors were also suffering the same since both had nodded at her. The Turian counselor seemed to be a little perturbed, but the Solarian counselor was quieter yet somewhat surprised. Thus, she turned to look forward to continuing hearing the story. Later she would make the appropriate questions. Then Naruto continued with his story. "It was then that everything started. It was about 2 in the morning. It was the moment that a small group of Reapers came to my world with the intention of retrieving a device and simultaneously harvest us." Naruto's voice paused, and just then everyone could hear mighty horns coming from the sky. Those in the room looked up while Naruto configured his illusions so that the other council members could see as well. Surprisingly, the council members saw 4 giant starships like the one that had attacked the citadel, descending from the sky accompanied by 3 smaller ones. All of them were honking their horns and descending until landing on the ruins of the village that they could see in the distance. Then Naruto continued. "They arrived at my clan's village in an attempt to retrieve a certain artifact as they believed that said artifact was still there. But in my youth, I had already retrieved it. So after being in that place for several hours without finding any trace of the artifact, they had no choice but to go to the nearest villages to start their attack. After that, the room underwent a change again. Now everyone could see that the group of ships was firing their cannons at a small village called Kuni and killing almost all of its inhabitants with their first attacks. Meanwhile, the few survivors were turned into husks by some spikes that the counselors had seen the largest ships throwing to the ground. After their first attack, the Reapers went from village to village, killing and turning as many people as they could. Until they heard the powerful voice echoing throughout the place while everything underwent changes again. Now, Shepard and the others in the room felt vertigo since they were high in the sky, right next to the big ships that were floating towards another village surrounded by a high circular wall. But they quickly realized that they could not fall, so they just stood still watching the Reapers approaching said village. It was still dark, and the rain did not cease. The Reapers had already made a great slaughter in a few hours without anyone realizing it. Therefore, believing that no one would detect them, they continued their flight to the village hidden in the leaves. But before they could reach the village, a yellow flash appeared right in front of them. "Enough! You have already gone too far." They all heard Naruto, who was floating in front of them. He looked completely different from the one that Shepard and the counselors had seen. His clothes were different. He wore a dark red coat with black flames, a black suit, and a band tied at his waist that had something written but it meant Great Shinobi Nation. The expression on his face was also very different. This Naruto did not look so wise, yet he seemed very calm and serene, as if his life had been just peace since a long time ago. That was something that pleased Shepard since she could not see even a slight hint of sadness or guilt in that face. There was only the severe face of a man willing to do anything to defend his loved ones. The Reapers knew the newly appeared man, but they cared little and started charging their guns before shooting their beams at Naruto, who saw the need of disappearing in another yellow flash to dodge something that could have been quite problematic if it had hit him. The beams struck very close to the walls of Konoha, which made Naruto growl angrily and appear before the Reapers while making the seal of the horse. "Katan, Gokamekyaku, fire release, great fire annihilation." Then everyone saw Naruto with amazement as he expelled from his mouth a giant wall of flames that completely covered the 7 Reapers while the attack extended itself several hundred meters backward. Naruto continued performing the technique until after a few seconds he was forced to dodge a beam that came out of the wall of flames, which went quickly towards him. So with no choice, he had to cancel his technique while descending slightly from the air to dodge said beam that this time struck the wall of Konoha, destroying it into pieces and causing a great explosion a little further ahead which destroyed some buildings that were nearby. The ninjas were already aware of the invaders' presence because Naruto had ordered them to take the civilians to the shelters and commanded them to be ready for anything. Naruto had also informed the other villages, which had quickly received the message from their leader, and they had begun to take their civilians to their shelters for any type of emergency while the ninjas began to prepare themselves for a possible conflict with an unknown enemy. Naruto, after dodging the beams, looked back to where the giant machines that were covered by a black curtain of smoke were, but it slowly dissipated and revealed they had not received the slightest damage. Impossible! That had to burn them completely. Naruto whispered, impressed because they had not received any damage. But he left that aside as he began dodging the fast beams of the machines that were starting to stretch his patience. But after a few seconds, Naruto could not help grunting with annoyance since they were taking the opportunity to shoot several of their beams at Konoha. Enough already! Naruto exclaimed angrily. He raised his right hand and made appear a white sphere that began to grow. Then the vision focused on Naruto, and everyone could see that his eyes resembled a toad while the ball in his hand was enormous. Senpu Futon Rasen Shuriken, Sage Art, Wind-style Rasen Shuriken. Then Naruto released the already gigantic disc of chakra at the Reapers, who did not have time to shoot at it. Therefore, they tried to get out of its way, but not all of them could, and 2 of the Destroyer-class Reapers and 1 of the Sovereign class were affected by the technique. This time, their shields could no longer resist the powerful technique that ended up cutting them into pieces while it disintegrated them due to the sudden expansion and subsequent blast of the jutsu, which this time could catch by the tentacles of 3 other Sovereign-class Reapers, which suffered heavy damage, but they could still fight. However, Naruto had no plans to put at risk one of his villages. Hence, he repeated the process, but this time with other variations of the Rasengan, destroying the rest of the Reapers, who uselessly tried to attack him. After that, Naruto stopped using the natural chakra that Kurama had collected and landed on the ground, to go to what was left of one of the smaller machines. Naruto sensed that the part that remained intact was its head, so he began to examine it carefully until some white lights turned on and a red one did it where its main gun was. Naruto did not detect anything hostile, so he remained silent. Uzumaki Naruto, said a husky and very powerful voice. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that. You know who I am? He asked since he had no idea who they were. Harbinger speaks of you. Don't fight, give us the artifact and become part of the cycle, the voice replied. Naruto raised an eyebrow again since he did not know what he meant. I don't know who this Harbinger is, and I either know which artifact you are speaking about. What do you want from here? Leave us alone, Naruto said as he felt several ninjas near his position. We have decided to make you part of the cycle. You cannot stop us, just give us the artifact and become a part of us, the Reaper replied. Naruto growled, but he had not done anything since he still had questions. You still didn't tell me what that artifact is. Besides, if you attack us, I assure you that we will fight back, Naruto stated. The Reaper monotonously replied. You cannot win. We are many. We'll see about that. Naruto spoke, but the Reaper continued. You cannot comprehend the magnitude of our presence. All you can do is give up and leave us to bring order. Give us the artifact. Naruto, upon realizing the Reaper's insistence regarding the artifact, could only think of one thing. Maybe that would explain the mysteries of the apple that he found several years ago. Therefore, Naruto asked, Do you mean this? After that, Naruto carried his hand to his waist and pulled a scroll out from his ninja pocket to extract something that was sealed in there. The Reaper then saw a circular object that was shining in his hand. Give us the artifact. The voice of the Reaper sounded even louder than before. Naruto then understood it, but he decided to ask. I see. What do you want from it? What do you want to do with it? It's the key to access other worlds and bring order to them. Give us the artifact, the Reaper replied. Naruto sighed, but then he stood firm and made one last question. If I give it to you, will you promise me to leave this place? I don't want to start a war, much less for something like this. I don't want to put innocent lives in danger. We have decided that all of you will be part of the cycle. Surrender, give us the artifact, and become a part of us. The Reaper sentenced, which made Naruto bow his head. But after a few seconds he raised it, and the Reaper saw that his eyes changed to purple. Well, I don't think I can do anything more. After that, Naruto raised his right hand and pointed it to the Reaper. Tell your friends that we will be waiting for them and that we will fight them. Shinra Tensei, almighty push! After saying those words, everyone saw a force being expelled from Naruto's palm. A force that sent the Reaper hundreds of meters backward, while said technique destroyed several hectares of forest. The Reaper stayed completely dysfunctional due to the pressure of the last attack of Naruto, who, after contemplating this, gave a swing and declared, "Get ready! A war is about to begin. Inform everyone about this. We must prepare ourselves for this imminent war." All the ninjas, who had gathered there, nodded and then disappeared in puffs of smoke to go to get the word out to everyone, while Naruto made clones so that each of them informed the rest of the shinobi villages about the war. After that, the room changed again, and everyone saw something similar to what Shepard had seen when she arrived at Naruto's planet. The only difference was that Naruto had not shown them the weapon that he used when there was almost no shinobi resistance. He just showed them the end of the Reapers and the shinobi world. After that, the room went completely dark, and everyone could hear Naruto's voice echoing again. And that's what happened. Then the room began to regain its original shape. After a few seconds, everyone saw Anderson's office. Naruto was in front of the counselor's projections, and Shepard and the others behind him. Subsequently, there was an awkward silence for several minutes. No one said anything because they were surprised, except Shepard, since she had seen this before, but some things were new to her. But eventually Naruto spoke. "That's my evidence. I hope it was more than enough to make you believe that the Reapers are a real threat." But eventually Naruto spoke. "That's my evidence. I hope it was more than enough to make you believe that the Reapers are a real threat." However, the Turian counselor refuted. "How do we know it was not a simulation that Anderson placed in his office? There are many inconsistencies in that vision, which makes me believe that it was a simple simulation to make us spend resources on a non-existent threat." "I would never do something like that," Anderson replied, stepping forward, annoyed by the words of his colleague. This time, the Asari counselor decided to speak. "I also think that there were many inconsistencies, such as the number of years that you mentioned. That you have been able to defeat ships like these by yourself, and that you could talk in the Asari language," the counselor said. Even though she believed the Reapers were a real threat now, she still had her doubts about the truthfulness of Naruto's evidence. The latter that the counselor had said caught the attention of the other counselors, and before Naruto could reply, the Solarian counselor added with confusion, "I think they were speaking in the Solarian language." The Turian counselor also began to look at them with a look of curiosity, since he could swear they were speaking in his mother tongue. The counselors did not need to resort to the translator because they spoke several languages, among them, several of the human languages. "Ah, I see what's going on," the Turian counselor spoke. "The simulator surely had a translator software. I see. I think there's no need to continue this anymore. We don't need to keep hearing his lies," he finished. Naruto could not help sighing after hearing the counselor speaking in that way, so before he could retire, Naruto decided to ask, "Before you leave, Mr. Counselor, I would like you to answer me a question." The Turian counselor just looked at him, so Naruto took this as a yes and proceeded. "I would like to know why you refuse to see the truth. I can sense that the other two counselors are already sure of the threat that the Reapers represent. They're just a little bit confused by some things that I'll explain in a moment, after convincing you that the Reapers are real and not just an invention of the commander or mine," Naruto stated as he carried his hands behind his back and stood firmly. The Turian counselor couldn't believe that. Thus, he looked at his colleagues to tell him he was wrong, but in doing so, he realized that they both had nervous-looking faces, as if what Naruto had showed them minutes ago had left them quite disturbed. "Come on, Don't tell me you believed in his words. There must be another explanation. We can't spend the council resources on something we don't have a clear evidence. Spiritus, the Turian counselor, said. Shepherd was tired. That's why she stepped forward and exclaimed. Don't you realize? What the hell do you think the sovereign was? What further proof do you need? She asked angrily because of his skepticism. Spiritus was disgusted by Shepherd's insolence. Nonetheless, before he could say anything, Tevos, the Asari counselor, spoke. Spiritus, you're more obstinate than usual. I understand that the idea of cooperating with other races is not to your liking, even more with humans after the first contact war that you had against them. But they have just shown us a strong evidence that there is a large threat lurking. Therefore, you should leave your differences aside and try to cooperate, at least until we find a way to defeat the Reapers. Tevos stated, clearing up the doubts she had a moment ago about the existence of the Reapers. However, she still had her doubts about what Naruto had shown them. I also agree with what Tevos just said. If what we have seen is 100% accurate, then it would be best to start preparing ourselves, and you, Valern, the Solarian counselor, said as he looked at Naruto. You'll have to prove you can do what you've done in your evidence. On Surkesh, we'll be more than happy to see your skills to verify its accuracy. Valern continued. Tevos added. I will also want to check your skills on Thesha. If they're true, you will help a lot in this conflict. Naruto nodded and then everyone looked at Spiritus, who eventually sighed in defeat. Okay, I want to see that too. If you can do what you showed us in your evidence, then I will also support that we use our resources to prepare ourselves for the supposed battle. I'll be waiting for your arrival on Palaven. Don't be late, or I'll believe that they were outright lies. Naruto nodded and then continued. I'm very pleased that we have reached an agreement without me having to resort to violence. That drew the attention of the counselors, who felt that there was a slight taste of threat in his words, and Spiritus spoke again. How do you dare to threaten us? He asked, upset. Naruto looked at him and shook his head. Sorry, that wasn't my intention. It was just something I had planned to do. I had the intention to force you to cooperate if this meeting didn't go as I wanted. I am not one for games. I needed you working, and I was willing to force you. The lives of trillions of people depended on the outcome of this meeting, after all. So please excuse me again if my words sounded like a threat, but I didn't want to hide my intentions to my new allies. He replied, bowing slightly. Spiritus was not satisfied with his words, but before he could say anything else, Tevos took the floor. And how would you have done that? She asked interestedly. Naruto turned his head to her and replied. I would have put you all in an illusion that would have placed you at my mercy. But it's something I don't plan to do because we have come to an agreement. So I see it as something unnecessary. Upon hearing that, Valern brought his fingers to his chin as he said, mental control. Interesting, I would like to discuss that ability of yours. He requested with little doubts on Naruto's abilities because he could hear his honesty. Okay, but you must understand that some things should be kept as a secret. There are still many things that need to be explained, but I think it would be better to try those points personally. But now, I have nothing more to say. I would just ask you not to comment with anyone about what you've seen and what we've talked about. Naruto added. Sure, the council meetings are always kept as a secret, Tevos replied. Naruto nodded in satisfaction and then Valern continued. As for you, Shepherd, we can't help you yet. The terminus systems are out of our jurisdiction. So there's little or nothing we can do, but still, we'll allow you and your crew to do the job. For that reason, we'll reinstate your status as a Spectre. Spiritus added. Besides that, you must limit your operations to the terminus systems and keep a low profile. Remember that you're working with Cerberus, and we can't let others think that the Council is helping an avowed enemy of the Council. It would cause retaliation. Shepherd nodded and replied. I accept your offer. Tevos continued. Good luck with your investigation, Shepherd. We hope for a quick resolution, and a quick end to your relationship with Cerberus, she expressed before looking at Naruto. As for you, I'll be waiting on Thesha. I'll take a flight to go there quickly. So when Shepherd and you have some time, go to my planet. After that, Tevos had proceeded to end the call, but she did not do so because Naruto spoke before. You don't have to. I've already sent someone to the place where you are," Naruto stated while scratching his head. "What do you mean?" Valorn asked. Naruto smiled a bit nervously as he continued scratching his head. "Well, while you were watching that vision, I started looking for your location. Remember that I had planned to mind control you. And when I found your localizations, I sent a clone of mine to that place. But don't worry, that clone will answer all your questions, and he'll be able to send you to your home planets without any problems. He'll tell some things that we couldn't discuss here. If you have any questions, just ask him." The counselors only stared at him in disbelief, but then Tevos ended the communication. After that, the counselors looked at each other, and before they could say something about it, they all heard someone shouting behind them. "Hey!" The counselors, when hearing this voice, slowly turned around in shock, just to see Naruto going upstairs to where they were. Upon arriving there, the clone realized that all of them were staring at him with wide eyes, so he decided to talk. "Well, I see that the boss has reached an agreement with you. It seems I won't have to do what I came to do. Anyway, the boss just gave me new instructions. Tell me, do I take you to your planets?" He asked for some reason quite impatiently, looking specifically at Tevos. Tevos could see the look of impatience that the clone was giving her, but she did not pay much attention to it, and just shook her head. "And how would you do that?" she asked, now looking better at the clone. In the communication, the image of Naruto was not very clear, but now she could see that he was quite handsome. But she had stopped examining him when she heard the response of the clone. "It's simple. You'll see it soon now." Then they saw him crossing his fingers, and instantly 2 puffs of smoke appeared to his side, revealing 2 other clones, which made the counselor's jaws drop. The main clone then spoke while carrying his fist in front of his mouth. Ahem, as I was the first clone, then I will go to the planet of the Blue Beauties. I mean Thesha," he announced with a superior look. The other 2 clones were obviously against this, but they said nothing. They just raised their middle fingers and pointed them to the clone, who continued with that look that made them want to punch him right in his face. But to avoid this, each of them approached at one counselor. The one at the right towards Spiritus, and the left one towards Valorn. And before either of them could say anything, the clones had disappeared along with the counselors, who did not feel at all well when feeling their first trip in the Kamui. Tevos had seen this with eyes wide open, quite disconcerted by the sudden disappearance of her colleagues. However, she left her state when she saw the other clones stepping forward, so she asked, a little nervous, "Is it safe?" The clone, upon hearing this, gently grabbed her hand as he gave a warm smile. "Trust me, nothing bad will happen to you. Count on it." The clone finished kissing her hand. The clone then raised his head, seeing that the counselor was smiling. "Well, you're quite daring. But I would like to know a little more about you on my planet, in private," she said coquettishly. The clone smiled, and without a word, he disappeared in his Kamui along with the counselor, heading to her home planet to discuss the relevant points on the defense against the Reapers. In Anderson's office, those present was congratulating an embarrassed Naruto, who could not help scratching his head with a smile on his face. "Ha! It was nothing," Naruto stated with a blush of shame as he continued hearing the congratulations of the others because he had convinced the council about the Reaper's existence. But after a while, Anderson could not help saying, "Though I'm also interested in seeing those skills of yours. Maybe we could go to Earth one of these days. It's been a few years since I've been back there. I could use a vacation as we prepare ourselves for the Reaper invasion." Anderson spoke while rubbing his neck due to fatigue. Shepard smiled at that but said nothing as the door of Anderson's office swung open. Shepard instantly pulled the smile away from her face to change it to a serious one as she saw a man with an elegant white suit entering the room. "Anderson, we need to talk about," the man said, but stopped abruptly at the sight of Shepard in the room. "Shepard! What are you doing here?" he asked with anger in his words. Shepard looked at him defiantly and answered, "I've got a long list of people I didn't want to see, and your name is right at the top," Shepard stated, pointing at him with her right index finger. Udina, who this man was, took a few steps forward as he glared at Shepard. The feeling is mutual, believe me. Your return is a bureaucratic nightmare for us, he stated. But before they could continue showing their discontent among themselves, Anderson decided to speak. I invited Shepard here to speak with the council. We just finished our meeting. Udina shook his head and asked, baffled. You what? Counselor, does the words political shitstorm mean anything to you? He asked with a dismissive tone. Shepard was tired. The good mood had been ruined in a moment because of him. But she contained herself and spoke as gently as she could. I'm here because the fate of humanity is at stake. That's what you should care about, she stated. That hardly mattered, Udina, who replied. All you soldiers think alike. You charge head first into a problem with no regard for the long-term consequences, he exclaimed angrily. However, Anderson decided to put a stop to this. I make the decisions around here, Udina. Your job is to clean up the mess I leave behind. Understand? He asked. Udina growled slightly, but then sighed and answered. Of course, Counselor. Given the potential size of this one, I'd better get started. I'll be in my office. And with that said, Udina turned around and left his office. Seeing him leaving, Shepard and Anderson sighed while shaking their heads, and Naruto, who was a little behind them, could not help saying, I wouldn't mind killing that guy right now. Wow, he got on my nerves very quickly, he stated. Everyone chuckled, but then Shepard and Anderson walked away to catch up because they had not seen each other for quite some time. Naruto and Geras patiently waited while both of them spoke about what had happened a few minutes ago. After about 15 minutes, both realized that Shepard and Anderson returned to where they were. Hence, they both stopped talking to pay attention. Well, that would be all, Anderson. I'll return if you need me again. Well, I think I'll return to take you to Earth so you can see there what Naruto has to show. For now, we'll retire to continue our mission, Shepard said. Anderson nodded and continued. I would appreciate that. I'll send you a message when I'm ready. Right now, I'm a little busy, so that will have to wait a bit longer. Even though I have no doubts that Naruto can do everything we saw, I'd still like to see what he's able to do with my own eyes. It'll be a unique experience, Anderson stated. Very well. It was nice talking to you, Anderson. I'll see you soon, Shepard said as she shook hands with Anderson. After a few seconds, the rest said goodbye to Anderson and everyone left his office while Shepard grabbed her helmet before returning to Sakura. Along the way, Geras said he would take another rapid transit since he said he would buy a new armor because the one he had been damaged by the explosion on Omega. Though he had said this because he wanted to leave Shepard and Naruto alone to have their date. On the way back to Sakura, Shepard had felt a little nervous because the last date that she could remember was in her days as a gang on Earth when she was 16. But that was several years ago, and back then she was just a brat who had no clue about anything, and now she was about to have a date with a man who had much more experience, and who was several thousand years older than she was. She was afraid of spoiling it and pushing Naruto further away. She did not want Naruto thinking that she was a boring woman who only thought about the alliance, in completing her missions and so on. She also liked to hang out, go dancing, drinking with friends, feed her fish, among other things, but the fear of ruining everything was there. But Shepard had no idea what Naruto liked. After all, Naruto was from an entirely different world from hers. Naruto could feel that Shepard was a little nervous. He did not know the reason for it, so to calm her down a bit he decided to talk while Shepard continued driving the shuttle. So tell me, Shepard, how long have you been in the Alliance? Shepard at Naruto's voice instantly left her thoughts and answered. 13 years. I joined the Alliance when I was 18. She replied, then she asked because she wanted to take the opportunity to learn more about Naruto. And you? At what age did you become a ninja? She remembered that Naruto had said he had joined a secret organization of his village at an early age, but he had not given many details because he had just mentioned it. Naruto brought his fingers to his chin as he began to think. Let me think. If I remember well, it was when I was about 6 years old. Yeah, I think so, he replied. When Shepard heard that, she turned her head to the right and looked at him. You must be kidding. I believed you had started your career at the age of 15 when you said early. But 6 years old? Wow. And what did you do as a child there? If you don't mind answering. Naruto smiled and shook his head. No, it doesn't bother me. I'll answer all the questions you have, shepherd. He paused and then continued. In the beginning, I only trained. I went through many things in that place, and after half a year, they began to send me on missions. They weren't simple ones. Many had to do with murders, kidnappings, extortions, blackmail, manipulation, and all those dark things that a government wouldn't do in public. We acted in the shadows. We were the root. Naruto replied, looking at Shepherd, who could not help asking. You killed since your childhood? I'm sorry, Shepherd said, a little sad when imagining a child having to do those things without having to enjoy their childhood. Naruto shook his head and continued. You don't have to. I didn't dislike what I did. I can say that I enjoyed doing it. It kept me distracted. It made me think about other things than hatred or revenge. Though at first it wasn't easy for my first kills, eventually I got used to it and stopped thinking about it. Anyway, that's already past. It happened so long ago that I only have vague memories of it. Shepherd nodded and continued. Would you kill someone again if somebody ordered you to do it, no matter who that person is? She asked. No, Naruto replied instantly, and before Shepherd could continue, Naruto continued. I wouldn't. It's a personal decision that I've taken long ago. I no longer desire to kill. I don't like the idea of having to take the life of another person just because I can do it. I've lived many experiences, and because of them, I understood that in most cases, killing is unnecessary. However, he paused to turn his head to look at Shepherd, realizing that she was listening to him carefully. Hence, he continued. That doesn't mean I'll never kill anyone. If I see someone who really doesn't deserve to live, I'll kill him or her without flinching. But no, I wouldn't do it if someone orders me to do it. That would be mine and nobody else's decision. He spoke looking towards the front as he continued talking. But don't worry, Shepherd. We all have free will. I'm nobody to tell someone else what to do or what not to do. So you can do whatever you want on your missions. I won't say anything about it, as long as they are justified killings. If not, I would only share my viewpoint. Shepherd at that could not help thinking at the time when she killed Kafka and what Naruto had told her next. I'm sorry, you're right. She apologized. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Why are you apologizing? He asked. I remember that after I had killed Kafka, you told me it was unnecessary, and I replied I could do whatever I wanted in a not very nice manner. At that time, I was jealous, and I wanted to get even with someone, and I did it with him and later with you. She replied, a little embarrassed by admitting her jealousy. Naruto at that looked at her as he began to scratch his right cheek. About that, Shepherd, Naruto said, but before he could continue, Shepherd spoke. There's no need, I understand, she expressed as she took the exit to go to Sakura. Naruto shook his head and continued. No, it's not that. You see, this year I wasn't able to see you. I thought a lot and… Shepherd could feel her heart pumping faster at these words, but Naruto did not stop and continued. I believe I was very harsh with you at that time. So please, accept my apologies. I didn't mean to talk to you in that way, sorry. Naruto apologized, making Shepherd feel as if a big rock had fallen upon her. She just gave a forced smile and replied. And no, don't worry about it. I should be the one who should be apologizing because I rushed things. Naruto tried to say that she did not need to apologize, but he could not because Shepherd continued. But hey, it's not the time to talk about that. Furthermore, we have returned to Sakura, so let's go and eat this ramen stuff you've talked about. Shepherd parked the shuttle and opened its door. Naruto had nodded to Shepherd's words. But after hearing the latter, he could not help looking at her in disbelief. This ramen stuff you've talked about? He asked, looking at her. Both were still sitting in the shuttle. I think that's what I said, she replied, looking carefully at Naruto, who then shook his head and quickly stood up from his seat to walk to the side of Shepherd, who just observed him. Once Naruto was there, he extended his hand to Shepard with a smile. So, what are you waiting for, Shepard? It's time to go and eat. We'll have a good time. Shepard smiled back and grabbed Naruto's hand to get up. After that, Naruto and Shepard walked out of the parking lot, heading to Sakura's market. Naruto was still raising strange looks from people, and all this was due to his whisker marks, which had also caught the attention of Shepard since the first time she had seen him. But she had never been able to ask him about it. Maybe she could take the opportunity to do it when they reached that place to eat together. Naruto also noticed this, but with his enhanced senses, he could hear that most of the whispers were about Shepard. Many were looking at her with great respect and admiration, while others, in addition to paying attention to his whisker marks, were talking about the fact that they were walking together and very close to each other. However, Naruto didn't care because the only thing he cared about was that he was about to eat ramen after several centuries, and that made Naruto unable to pull the smile away from his face as they walked. Shepard noticed this, and could not help saying as they turned to the right to walk downstairs. I can see you're excited, she said, looking at him. Naruto turned his head, bowed it, and looked at her. Well, I can't help it. It's one of the few things that I still enjoy until today, he replied. Shepard smiled but said nothing more. They finally walked downstairs and passed by a place where used ships were sold. They went out from there and entered Sakura's commercial district. Naruto and Shepard saw Avina near the wall, right out of that shop. But they didn't approach her since they both could hear someone saying aloud, Irashimasu, welcome! Instantly, Naruto approached the place where the voice came from. There he could see an average-sized man with Japanese traits. However, Naruto did not pay much to it, and just said in his native language, Konnichiwa, anata wa ramen o hanbai shitemasu ka? Hi, do you sell ramen? The man smiled, delighted to have a conversation in his native language, so he replied, Hi. Suriha watashi no main desyutsu, yes, that's my main dish. Yada! Seigo and I. Yeah! At last! Naruto exclaimed, raising his left fist, with tears going down his cheeks that looked like a waterfall. The cook stared at him in shock when he saw him doing that, but before he could ask how he could do it, Shepard approached. Hello, good evening. Excuse my friend, he's special, and he can do weird stuff. She stated so that the cook didn't ask questions about it. Shepard did not understand anything they both had said since she did not always have her automatic translator of her Omni tool activated. It was only configured to certain types of alien languages. The cook at that voice looked over, and there he saw the great Commander Shepard in all her glory. Commander Shepard! It's an honor to have you here. Please take a seat, the cook said as he handed each of them a stool. Naruto quickly grabbed one and sat down on it, with a smile on his face, waiting to eat some ramen. Shepard did it too, but she did it quietly as she looked at the cook, who quickly brought a menu to each of them. Naruto immediately began to read everything, but then he sighed and put the menu down on the table, which made Shepard raise an eyebrow since Naruto had suddenly lost all enthusiasm. When she was about to ask him what was happening, she saw him standing up from his seat to leave. Shepard quickly rose up from her seat and grabbed him by his wrist, preventing him from leaving. Hey, what's going on? Why did you lose enthusiasm so suddenly? She asked with a hint of concern because she could see Naruto quite discouraged. Naruto then turned around and looked at Shepard with one of the weirdest faces that she had ever seen. His eyes had gone quite shiny, round like of a puppy, and they shed a lot of tears. I don't have money, he replied as he moved his hands to his pockets to get them out, and moths came out of each side. Shepard almost falls backward at that, but in the end, she could not help laughing as she hit Naruto's shoulder softly. You fool! I thought you remembered something that brought you bad memories. Come on, let's eat. Don't worry about the money. It won't be a problem, she stated as she grabbed Naruto by his right to tug him back. But, Naruto tried to say as she pulled him. But then he sighed in defeat as Shepard forced him to sit on his stool again. You know, Shepard. The place where I come from, it's the one who usually pays for the meal, Naruto said. Shepard laughed as she took her metal gloves and helmet off from her armor, placing them on the counter of the stand. Then she answered as she began to read the menu. Well, now we're not in your world. Now you're under my commands, and I command you to accept my dinner invitation. Shepard said, putting the menu down to carry her index finger towards Naruto, slightly touching the tip of his nose. Naruto looked at her for a few seconds but then asked hesitantly, Are you sure you want to pay, Shepard? Shepard turned to him and gave a nod, so Naruto smiled as he started cracking his knuckles. Okay, if you insist, I have no choice but to accept. But next time, I'll invite, Naruto exclaimed with a smile. Shepard smiled since she understood that this would not be the only time they would go out together, so she looked back at the menu only to hear Naruto and the cook speaking in Japanese again. She did not pay much attention to it, so she continued reading carefully. There were many dishes, but she decided to try a specific ramen as one of its ingredients had caught her attention. Therefore, she waited for Naruto and the cook to finish talking so that he can take her order. After they had done it, the cook approached her and asked, What would your order be, Commander Shepard? He asked, quite excited. I think I'll take a bowl of miso ramen. One of its ingredients caught my attention, she replied, smiling. Naruto smiled and turned his head to her. Well, let me tell you that the miso ramen is a delicacy. Even more by the Naruto's, hee. I didn't think there would be so many similarities between my world and this country called Japan. How lucky I am! He exclaimed, quite happy. Shepard smiled and added, It called my attention to see your name on the menu. It was strange somehow, she said, looking at him, still smiling. Naruto smiled back and called the cook to speak in Japanese again. After that, Shepard saw the cook taking a few steps backward before returning with a small bottle with a cork and 2 small porcelain cups. Sake, she thought as she saw the cook placing the bottle and glasses near them. Naruto quickly uncorked it and poured its liquid in his glass before looking at her. Would you join me while he finishes preparing our orders, Shepard? He asked as he lifted the bottle slightly. Shepard grabbed the glass and raised it slightly. Naruto smiled and poured some of the liquid in her glass. Then he put the bottle down. After that, Naruto raised his glass up to his stomach and continued. I would like to drink a toast, Shepard. Okay, she answered, doing the same thing as Naruto, waiting for his toast. Well, there are many things for which I want to toast, but the main ones are these. He made a short pause to look at Shepard directly into her eyes that caused a slight blush, but she stared back without problems. I want to toast for you, Shepard. For making me leave my planet, for convincing me that there are worthy people who deserve help. For making me realize that there's still hope, and above all, for being here with you, a beautiful and gorgeous woman about to share a delicious dinner, he stated before lifting the glass up to his eye. Shepard did the same, and then they both said cheers before clinking their glasses. Then they both drank the contents, and they both let out a growl due to the burning that the sake caused them when going down their throats. Ah! It's still as strong as I remember, Naruto exclaimed, putting the glass down. How many years have passed since the last time I drank sake? He asked. Shepard chuckled and then grabbed the bottle to pour the liquid into her glass and Naruto's. Now I want a toast, Shepard said with a smile, while doing the same thing that Naruto did moments before. Naruto also did it while waiting for Shepard's words, who smiled again and then continued. Ahem, well, I toast to you. Because you decided to help us in this difficult mission, for proving the Council the Reaper's existence, and for staying strong for so many years, without faltering and always thinking about stopping the Reapers. Naruto smiled at Shepard's words and they both clinked their glasses before drinking, growling at the end. After that, the cook approached with a tray and hands filled with 2 large steaming bowls of miso ramen, which made Naruto's stomach growl loudly, and made Shepard and the cook laugh. Here you go, the cook said as he put a bowl in front of each of them. Then he gave them some packets that contained chopsticks. Naruto opened it and said as he put his hands in prayer position, Itadakimasu! With that said, Naruto drew the chopsticks out and put them on his right hand. But before he could eat, Naruto looked at Shepard, realizing that she was having troubles with the chopsticks. Problems? Naruto asked, lowering the chopsticks again. Shepard looked at him for a moment before retrying to put the chopsticks in her hand, attempting to emulate what Naruto had done when he picked them up, but it was not working. And no, don't worry. I'll find the trick, she answered, picking the chopsticks up before trying to exert some force on them, but they came out of her fingers. She growled and tried again, failing once again. Naruto chuckled. He turned around and carried his hands towards Shepard's hands, gripping them gently. It's hard at first, but you only have to do this, look. Shepard did not pay attention to what Naruto was saying because when she felt his hands, she just stared at him, feeling the big, soft, and warm hands of Naruto. So warm that it made Shepard release a sigh, which Naruto could hear. Is there something wrong, Shepard? Naruto asked, unable to finish his explanation. Shepard quickly shook her head and answered. No, nothing. I just got distracted. Naruto looked at her for a few seconds but then continued. As I was saying, this chopstick goes into the base of your thumb, and the other one between your index and middle fingers. Then you only have to do this, he said as he put the chopsticks on Shepard's fingers in the correct position. After that, Naruto sat back in his seat to put his chopsticks on his fingers as he showed Shepard how she should use them. Shepard understood it, so she thanked Naruto and then looked at the bowl of ramen, gathering a few of the noodles with her chopsticks. At first, they fell, but in the second attempt, she could pick them up and bring them to her mouth to eat, which made them smile. Shepard, when tasting the noodles, could not help saying, this tastes good, she stated, carrying more noodles into her mouth. The cook and Naruto smiled, and Naruto spoke. Really? I sense that. It has an excellent aroma. Anyway, now it's my turn. Itadakimasu! He exclaimed and quickly grabbed the noodles in his chopsticks. Then he got them up and took them into his mouth. He savored the noodles' flavor and had the same reaction as Shepard, causing another smile from the cook, who continued cooking more and more ramen since Naruto had been clear with the quantity. This is yummy! Naruto exclaimed, putting down the bowl after finishing eating, making Shepard look at him with wide eyes since he had finished that big bowl in less than 20 seconds while she had only just begun. Wow! That was fast. I think you were hungry, Shepard said, looking at him with surprise but with a smile. Naruto turned his head and smiled as he poured more sake in his and Shepard's glass, who thanked him. Indeed, it's been more than 3,000 years since my last meal, after all, he replied. The cook and the others who had come to eat at this place after seeing Shepard there looked at Naruto like if he were crazy. Shepard nervously laughed, so she looked at Naruto and expressed in a whisper. Shhhh, speak lower, don't say such things that lightly. Not everyone will understand those things, they'll think you're crazy, she said as low as possible. Naruto at this turned his head and saw that many people were looking at him almost to the point of laughing. Naruto could recognize some Krogans, some Turians, and a few humans. Everyone was looking at him with mocking smiles as if he were crazy. Ha! Not even my father lived that long. This human is insane, said a Krogan, who was accompanied by another Krogan. Naruto just ignored him, but Shepard spoke. Hey you! Silence! She ordered in a threatening tone while pointing to the Krogan, who could not help getting up from his place. And what will you do if I don't? The Krogan asked with a hoarse voice, trying to get closer, but he could not because his companion stopped him. Stupid, she is the Commander Shepard. She's a specter. She will kill you, and no one would bat an eye. Don't start this nonsense. The other Krogan pondered in a whisper. Nonetheless, the other Krogan grunted and pulled his arm out. I'm a former member of the Blood Pack. As if I would be intimidated by something like that. Then the Krogan replied and approached Shepard, who also did the same. But before they could fight, Naruto stood among them, stretching his hands. Come on, guys. Stop, this isn't the place to be doing these things. Shepard, let's continue our date, he said the latter to reassure Shepard, which he pretty much accomplished. So they both set out to sit down, but before they could, the Krogan could not help adding. Ha! The great Commander Shepard dating a little kitten like him. I'm sure you'd be the laughing stock of the Blood Pack if they hear about this, he stated, ending with a loud laugh. Shepard had felt angry again, but she said nothing since she saw that Naruto was completely still and with his head bowed. It seemed as if his face had darkened. That made Shepard have a bad feeling. However, Naruto turned around and looked at the Krogan with a rather serious look. "What did you call me? I think I've misheard. Did you say little kitten?" he asked with twitching eyebrows. "And what if I said it?" the Krogan asked, but suddenly, all those who were able to see his face could see that his eyes had lost their brightness as he continued talking. "Excuse my boldness. I will not bother anyone again." Then he turned around and sat down in his seat to start eating the ramen that his friend had ordered. He asked him what happened, but the Krogan did not answer and continued eating. Shepard looked at that a little puzzled, but she and Naruto sat down, and he began eating the second bowl that the cook had put in his place. "Naruto, are you okay?" Shepard asked. Naruto turned his head, and Shepard saw that he had noodles halfway in his mouth. The next thing she saw was that Naruto swallowed the noodles, staining his chin slightly, making her smile. "Yes, I have told you already, Shepard. I don't usually stay angry for long," he replied. Shepard focused on her bowl. "You didn't like being called that," she assumed. Naruto nodded and replied, "No, I never liked it. But this time, I was forgiving. In the past, I killed many people who have called me in that way. I think I have grown somehow. Though I can't yet stand being called that." He finished with a smile, showing Shepard that he was no longer angry. Therefore, she smiled back and continued eating, now calmer, while both of them continued sharing the sake and talked about what they had done when they were younger. But eventually, Shepard could not help saying, "At this rate, I'll end up drunk before our date ends." That made Naruto smile. Meanwhile, Naruto had more than 15 bowls stacked beside him, while Shepard had finished the first one just a few minutes ago before starting with the second one. However, before he could speak, Shepard continued, "Hey, can you bring some beers?" she asked, looking at the cook. "In a second, Commander Shepard," the cook replied as he opened the fridge to take some cans of beer. "Beer?" Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow as he watched the cook handing out a beer to Shepard, who opened it and then began to drink it slowly. Then she stretched out her hand so that Naruto can grab the beer and drink it. "Try it. It tastes good," she stated. Naruto grabbed it weakly and gave a slight sip as he began to taste it, but upon swallowing it, he could not help saying, "Yuck, I'm sorry, Shepard. But I'll continue drinking my rice wine, you can drink this." After that, Naruto handed over the can again, causing Shepard to laugh, who was already beginning to feel the effects of alcohol, but it was still very mild. "Well, to each his own. Sooner or later you'll end up drinking this." After that, Shepard swallowed a bit more as he continued eating the second bowl of ramen. Naruto smiled and did the same, but this one already was his 17th bowl, which made many of those present to look at him with wide eyes as they asked themselves where he kept all that food. The cook was happy because his business was having a lot of movement after a long time. Since the karaoke machine had been removed from his stand, sales had declined considerably, but now people were returning to eat. He continued kneading the dough for noodles just to hear Naruto exclaiming, "Hey, cook! Come here!" he said while waving his hands. He approached with a smile, and before he could ask what was going on, Naruto continued, "I just wanted to give you my congratulations. This dish is excellent. Even though you've used dried seaweed instead of meat, this is still exquisite. Thus, I would want to know your name." Naruto knew the thing about the dried seaweed because the cook had said that the meat in the citadel was not fresh. "My name is Tuchi Yoshida," he answered. At the name, Naruto felt a lump in the throat, which both Shepard and Tuchi could notice. Then they both saw that Naruto bowed his head while a small smile of nostalgia crossed his face. "Tuchi, huh?" he asked, raising his head again, still with that little smile on his face. Tuchi nodded, and Naruto shook his head. "Well, it's nice to meet you, Tuchi. I would like to shake hands with you," Naruto said, stretching out his hand. Tuchi instantly did it, and in doing so, he could feel many things. Among them, a kind of feeling that told him that the person in front of him belonged to a whole different world. He could not explain it very well. It was as if he were in the presence of a divine being. Even though he had never before felt anything like that, he could only describe it in that way. The other one was that something had entered into his body. It tickled him a little, but it lasted only a few seconds. Then both finished the handshake and Itachi could not help looking at his hand because the feeling of Naruto's power remained even after. But he just walked away to continue preparing more food for Naruto, as it seemed that he would not stop eating. Naruto just smiled as he continued eating more and more with some occasional glances from Shepherd, who had stopped eating because she felt full, but she kept drinking occasionally. After a few minutes of watching him, she continued the conversation on what they did before they met each other. Hence, they had a pleasant talk about the dangerous missions that Naruto did and the challenging missions where Shepherd had to take tough decisions to complete them. They continued talking for another 2 hours, getting to know each other as much as they could. But eventually, Naruto concluded that the evening should end because he saw Shepherd drunk. To avoid an accident, Naruto said to a more than happy Itachi because he had consumed more than 70 bowls of ramen. "I will definitely return, Itachi." However, he had started eating less because he didn't want to abuse Shepherd's kindness, who currently had rosy cheeks due to the alcohol, along with a smile that would not leave her face. Most likely, because she had a very nice date with her crush. When she saw Naruto standing, she got up from her seat to throw herself on him, as she crossed her arms around his neck. "Where do we go now?" she asked with a smile and slight slur. Naruto smiled back and replied, "Now I'll take you to your cabin, my dear Commander Shepherd." After that, Naruto picked Shepherd up in bridal style and disappeared in a yellow flash along with her, leaving a shocked Itachi, who could not believe what he had seen. The place was already empty because it was very late, so no one else had seen it. But he decided to leave it aside because he was sure he would not understand it. With a sigh, Itachi began to wash all the utensils that had been used today. But still, he was quite happy. But not everything was not all joy because he suddenly remembered something important. "They left without paying!" Itachi exclaimed, quite nervous because he believed they would not pay him. But after thinking a second time, he concluded that Shepherd would not do something like that, either would Naruto, because he thought they were honest people. Besides, he could see that Shepherd had forgotten her helmet and her metal gloves on the counter. So he kept them and continued with what he was doing. Chances were that Naruto or Shepherd would return later to pay the bill and recover Shepherd's belongings. Meanwhile, Naruto had returned to the Normandy with Shepherd in his arms, curled up and with her eyes closed because she was not yet used to the feeling of traveling in Naruto's Harem. But when she realized that the feeling of movement stopped, she opened her eyes and saw they were in her cabin. Naruto walked towards her bed, and upon arrival, he gently put Shepherd down on it while he started removing her armor. Shepherd, due to her state, could not help saying, "Fufufu, are you trying to take advantage of me?" she asked with a cheeky smile as she let Naruto remove her armor. Naruto chuckled and replied as he took the underside part of her armor off, revealing a black suit. "Maybe," he replied before continuing with the torso, but not before putting the underside part of her armor off the bed. Shepherd smiled, but she remained silent, waiting for Naruto to remove the rest of her armor. Once he did, Naruto got up from the bed to try to take Shepherd's armor to her closet, but before he could get away, he felt a tug on his hand that forced him to turn around and fall on the bed. The next thing he noticed was that Shepherd placed herself on top of him and quickly put both hands on his cheeks to attract his head to hers. However, before she could kiss him, Naruto turned his head to the left, making Shepherd give him a kiss on his left cheek. Shepherd laughed sensually at that, and she tried to do it again, but once again Naruto had turned his head to avoid the kiss on the lips. Shepherd tried again, but Naruto was not allowing her to. That brought her a sigh of disappointment, so she went down before lying down beside him, asking, "Do I not attract you at all?" she questioned, turning her head, seeing that Naruto was staring at the ceiling of her cabin. Then he turned his head to look at her and smiled with a hint of sadness. "It's not that, Shepherd. It's just that I don't want to hurt you. I've noticed that you really do love me. That's something that makes me really happy, but also makes me feel sorry for not being able to reciprocate those feelings. I have already explained it to you, Shepherd. I no longer feel ready to enter into a serious relationship. I don't want to lose everything again. He stated in a whisper that again conveyed to her the sadness and guilt that Naruto held inside of him. Once again, Shepherd felt that lump in her throat and chest, in addition to feeling something that gave her the need of pulling Naruto into her lap so he could release all the pain that he had accumulated in his heart. All that guilt and feelings that he was keeping to himself for so many years, she wanted to be able to heal his heart and restore light to his life. However, unlike the other occasion, Shepherd did not remain silent, completely forgetting about her drunkenness. Naruto, I wish I could understand you completely. I can only imagine what it's been for you to be alive for so long, away from all those who were once important to you. Unable to ever see or hear them, even love them. Shepherd said while doing a short pause to lift half of her body. Naruto looked at her very carefully, listening to her continuing. I know I shouldn't be insisting so much. But I can't help it. This pain I feel in my chest every time I see you like that makes me forget how short the time we have known each other is. She continued with her voice a bit broken as she put her right hand on her chest before squeezing her shirt. Shepherd. Naruto whispered, a little surprised and happy to hear her words as she continued. That's why I want to help you. I want to be a new light in your life. The person who makes you smile, laugh, and love again. Please give me a chance, give me an opportunity to heal your heart. She finished lowering her head to hide some tears that started running down her cheeks. She could not help it. She no longer wanted Naruto to be depressed, sad, and guilty. Nor did she want him to see her weak, or as a person who let her feelings guide herself. For this reason, she had bent down her head so Naruto couldn't see the tears. However, she suddenly felt Naruto's warm hand on her cheek. Therefore, she raised her head to look at him, seeing him with a grateful smile on his face. Thank you, Shepherd. I really appreciate your words. Shepherd returned the smile and laughed slightly while carrying her fingers to wipe the tears. You must be thinking that I'm pathetic. I, the Commander Shepherd, war hero, the woman who killed the Arachne and prevented the destruction of the Citadel, crying like a teenager who's madly in love with a superstar, haha. She laughed at the end, to pull the nervousness she felt away. Naruto smiled as he began to stroke Shepherd's cheek, which caused a blush. No, Shepherd. I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking that you're very brave for revealing your true feelings to me. Don't be ashamed for crying for love, only the brave ones do that, he stated, still touching her. When Shepherd heard that, she could not help looking straight into the deep blue eyes of Naruto. Unavoidably, she slowly began to bring her head to Naruto's face. Naruto! She whispered with her head at centimeters from him, while she lifted her lips slightly. Naruto could not deny that she looked charming in that way. Hence, he could not avoid doing the same. He slowly began to bring his head to hers. Come on, come on, come on! You can do it, Naruto! Kurama thought, excited and impatient, watching Naruto about to do what Red and he were telling him to during the year they were training. However, after a few moments, he could not help falling backward and sigh with annoyance when he saw Naruto dodging Shepherd's kiss, to kiss her on her cheek. Shepherd was disconcerted by this action since she thought that Naruto wanted to kiss her, and before she could ask what happened, Naruto spoke. It's still too soon, Shepherd. Good night, he whispered in her ear. The next thing that happened was that Naruto applied a pressure point to Shepherd's neck, knocking her out on him. He caught her and then he put her gently on her bed, putting her head on the pillow. Then he went to put her armor in her closet. As he walked, Naruto heard a voice exclaiming in his mind. What the hell was that, Naruto? Kurama asked, disappointed. Naruto did not answer and just put her armor in the closet. Damn coward! I can't still believe that even though you're the most powerful being in the universe, you're still afraid of love. You're pathetic, you embarrass me, he stated, shaking his head and letting out a sigh of disappointment. Naruto ignored him again. This time, he took a blanket out of the closet and put it on his arm to return to Shepherd's bed. Once there, he covered Shepherd with said blanket. Then Naruto sat on the floor, leaning up against the bed, slightly lowering his head. You don't understand it, Kurama. Naruto finally spoke. I understand that you're a coward, Kurama replied, unaware that his words were hitting Naruto hard. You're right. I'm a coward, a wimp, I'm pathetic, I'm not much of a man. Sorry, pal. Sorry for embarrassing you, he stated with a sadness countenance and a broken voice. Only now, Kurama realized that his words had been harsh, especially to someone like Naruto, who had been emotionally unstable from that day when he was revived. Therefore, he tried to apologize, but Naruto spoke before. But I just can't do it. I can't restart my life, it's impossible. He continued with a stronger voice, but it still held a bit of sadness. Kurama, realizing that Naruto had stopped talking, took the opportunity to do it. First of all, sorry for being so harsh with you. But it was your fault, boy. You were so close, so damn close that I thought you would finally restart your life. I couldn't help saying those words. You already know how I can be, he said, but continued before Naruto could say anything. But why do you think it's impossible? I don't understand, he asked with a raised eyebrow. Naruto stood up at that and turned around to look at Shepherd, who was sleeping very quietly on her bed. Naruto smiled slightly and then he left her cabin. Telling you won't change anything, Kurama. You will know it when the time comes. Now I don't see the need to tell you. After thinking that, Naruto cut communication with Kurama, who upon realizing this started to growl and yell to explain to him what he meant. But Naruto didn't hear anything else since he had completely blocked his connection with Kurama. He did not want to hear him. He did not want to explain his motives, as he did not feel in a good mood to do it. Thus, he just came out of the cabin and then went to get some rest to the hangar. The next day, Thesha headquarters, 6 a.m. After the clone of Naruto had taken Tevos to her home planet, the two of them had spent the rest of the day chatting about what Naruto had shown to the council on the Citadel, as they both waited for the leaders of Thesha to convene so they can start Naruto's test. Although they had not only talked about that, they had also talked about other issues. Nevertheless, nothing had happened between them yet, because the clone wanted Tevos to be in the optimal conditions in the morning. He did not want her tired after all. When the morning had come, Tevos had informed the clone that the leaders of the High Command of Thesha had been gathered, and the test would be performed at one of the headquarters on the planet. Therefore, Tevos and Naruto took a shuttle that would take them there. Upon reaching the headquarters, which was a large building, both went to the place where the test would take place, but not before Tevos introduced Naruto to the leaders. There were questions about if what Tevos had claimed about his skills were true, but Naruto had replied that they would see it with their own eyes in a few minutes. After that, the clone followed the Asari to the back of the building, where the test would be carried out. The Asari went to observe to an upper position while they pointed Naruto where he should go. It was a rather large field, and it seemed to be an Asari training camp. There were several Asari commandos, who did not know why they had been summoned to this place so suddenly. But when they saw Naruto, they quickly surrounded him. Some of the commandos wondered what a human was doing on their home planet, especially at one of their headquarters. However, they said nothing about it because it was an order from Counselor Tevos, who had already settled in the observation room with her fellow leaders and some matriarchs. Even though they had heard Naruto's story from Tevos, they were still incredulous that a human being could achieve such feats. Hence, they had unanimously decided to test him with the best commandos of Thesha before reaching a decision. So Tevos looked at those who were in the observation room, they nodded, and Tevos approached to the console and touched a button. Okay, Naruto, we'll see if what you showed us in that vision was real events or just a simulation, as Sparatus said. Tevos' voice sounded by the speakers. After that, she continued. Your goal is to defeat all those who are down there. If you can, Thesha will be willing to contribute resources to prepare ourselves against the Reapers, she stated. Instantly, all the Asari next to Naruto were incredulous that Tevos had ordered something like that to a mere human. Some of them could not help chuckling as they thought that Naruto would not have any chance, while others thought that Tevos wanted Naruto to kill himself when facing them. However, Naruto just nodded as he began to do some stretching under the watchful gaze of all the Asari, who quickly began to check their weapons while others took distance to throw their biotic attacks more efficiently. After completing their preparations, they looked at Naruto while waiting for the order to attack. However, they still did not know why they wanted them to kill a human. He looked completely disarmed. Well, all they could see were some shiny swords on his back, but they disregarded them as it wouldn't be enough to harm them. They trusted in their shields and barriers. Naruto, however, began to look at them. There were, at least, 60 Asari. Most of them had looks of laziness because they believed that the leaders had called them unnecessarily, while others looked at him with some mockery, since they didn't take him seriously. Nonetheless, this hardly mattered Naruto. He only placed his fingers in the tiger position. I'll try to give Tevos and the other leaders of this planet a show, he thought with a smile while Kurama gave the same expression. After thinking about it, an Asari commando spoke. I don't understand what the point of this is. However, it would be best that you desist. I wouldn't like to kill someone as handsome as you, but I will if you don't desist now. You should think this over. You have no chance. You are just you and we're over 50. You have everything to lose. That Asari stated. Naruto smiled and stopped crossing his fingers. Heh, I could put the amount in my favor if I wished it. But how about if we do something? He asked. What would that be? Asked another Asari. Naruto smiled and answered. Who are biotics? Immediately, all of them raised their hands, which made Naruto scratch his cheek. I see. But hey, how about we do this? If any one of you can move me with your biotics powers, even a millimeter from my place, then I'll desist and retire quietly from here. After that, he lowered his arms as he clenched his fists and separated his legs slightly. Many Asari chuckled again, but one stepped forward and said, Well, it won't be difficult. We are the best commandos of this planet. No one here knows why we were called upon, but we'll show them that it was just a waste of time. Naruto smiled slightly and said, Go ahead, give me your best shot. Before that, I should put your shields down. The commando replied. However, Naruto responded, I have no shields. I'm just wearing this to go unnoticed. The Asari stared at him for a moment, but then nodded as she heard him sincere. Consequently, all of those who were watching saw the Asari surrounding herself with her biotic cloak before throwing a powerful attack at Naruto, who saw it coming and just remained standing, receiving the attack, which completely enveloped him. However, as Naruto had said, nothing had happened, to the surprise of many since the attack was quite powerful. That attack would have made at least 5 different targets float against their will, but Naruto had not even moved an inch. After a few moments, the blue cloak that had enveloped him had disappeared, to the surprise and disbelief of all those present. I told you, will you take me seriously? Naruto asked with a half-smile. The Asari growled and launched another biotic attack, but when seeing that it did not work, she continued throwing more and more attacks in an attempt to move Naruto from his place. It can't be possible. You probably have shields or barriers, and that's why my powers aren't working, the upset Asari exclaimed. Many of the present Asari nodded at this, and Naruto sighed because they didn't take him seriously yet. Therefore, he slowly began to take the armor he was wearing off. Hey! What are you doing? Asked one of the Asari when Naruto was wearing his boxers only, a little embarrassed because of it. Many of the Asari could not help examining him in detail due to the well-developed body of Naruto, who was unaware of the glances that they were giving him. He simply replied, Well, I took that armor off, so you can see that I'm not lying. Now all I wear is this, he said, pointing to his boxers, and then continued, So I think that now you won't doubt that I don't have any kind of armor or barrier. I'm completely defenseless against any attack that you throw at me, he stated. Now they saw the point of it, but they still believed it was unnecessary. On a second thought, it wasn't that bad. However, they shook their heads. It wasn't the time to have such thoughts. The leaders of their planet had gathered them. They could not make themselves look ridiculous. Therefore, they all returned to their previous positions, willing to give Naruto the ride of his life with some of their biotics powers. Naruto noticed this, so he also returned to his initial position. However, he left it when he realized that only one Asari stepped forward to continue her attempt to move him. He looked at her and said, Wait, let's make the following. while doing a stop sign with his hands. The Asari looked at him with a questioningly raised eyebrow but decided to hear what he had in mind. When the clone noticed her silence, he continued. Well, what if all of you try to move me at the same time? This time, everyone looked at each other, but after a while, most of them had burst into laughter, while the first Asari who had spoken said, Ha ha ha, I like you, human. You're pretty reckless, but also stupid. If all of us attack you at the same time, then you will instantly die. Your body won't resist it, so stop saying nonsenses. If we're going to do this, then we'll do it one by one. Killing you would be a waste. In addition, we also want to have some fun with you. Many nodded to this, and Naruto could not help thinking. How boring! I don't know what to do so they take me seriously. I wouldn't like doing something very striking and risking damaging them severely. Look at those bodies! He mentally exclaimed, quite excited to be surrounded by the blue beauties. He did not care that they were mocking him, all he cared about was that so many Asari surrounded him. He had been pretty excited since he had come to this planet. However, he managed to keep a hold on his composure. Kurama added with a smile. I can see that you haven't changed at all in these 90,000 years. However, I suggest you to stop wasting time. Get on their nerves, you're an expert on that matter. Although I hope you haven't lost your touch, you haven't practiced it with anyone for thousands of years after all. Did you say something, Kurama? Naruto asked with a questioning expression, making Kurama have large vein marked on his forehead. Damn brat! I hate when you do that. Arf! You are very lucky that we're in this together, or else I'd have eaten you quite a while ago. He exclaimed angrily, and was driven even more into his anger when he realized that Naruto had ignored him again, this time because he had already started speaking with the Asari, who seemed disgusted and angry about something that Naruto had said. Kurama only now could realize that Naruto was simply showing him that his skill to get on the nerves of people was still quite polished. Nonetheless, he wanted to know what he had said to these Asari. Kurama could not deny that it was funny to see Naruto getting on the nerves of others, provided it wasn't him, since he was a beast who angered quite easily and could not see the funny side to these things when it touched him. Therefore, he returned his attention to Naruto. What did you say? Exclaimed one of the enraged Asari. Naruto mockingly looked at her and replied. You heard me. Did you think that you were called here because you are the best Asari commandos? Ha ha ha, stop dreaming. You can't even move me from my place, and you think you're good? He said as he laughed and pointed to the Asari who had tried to move him and then to the others who had hesitated to do so, making them growl with anger. However, he continued. The truth is that you were called to entertain a human who had nothing better to do than waste his time with a bunch of useless women. If you brats want to know what a good Asari with excellent biotic powers is, then talk to Arya Tloke. Speaking of Arya, I should visit her after convincing the leaders from Thesha about the Reapers. He thought the latter with a smile. Finally, Naruto stated with a very serious face as he shook his head and sighed. By the goddess, I'm surrounded by incompetent people. When he finished saying that, he heard a mighty battle shout. He turned his head to where the shout came from, just to see an Asari throwing a powerful biotic attack at him, while the others followed her. In an instant, Naruto was attacked by more than 40 biotics attacks of all kinds, while the others who did not throw anything yet, also followed their companions to end up with the arrogant bastard. However, to the surprise, astonishment, disbelief, and terror, among other feelings, of the Asari, the clone had not been moved even an inch by their attacks. Tevo smiled, but she could not deny that she was surprised that the attacks of the best commandos had not made him even the slightest effect, while the other leaders were whispering among themselves, incredulous by such demonstration. In the field, some of the Asari stepped back involuntarily as they watched Naruto with some fear. He then stepped forward and asked with a serious look, Will you take me seriously now? And no. I can't be. I am possible. One of the Asari said after had Naruto spoken. Naruto then noticed that several of them were starting to fear, which was part of his plan. Thus, he hastened to say the following in an attempt to make them more nervous. He took a step forward, realizing that everyone raised their weapons in reflex. Hence, he stood still again, without moving even a single muscle, seeing that an Asari fearfully approached at him, while pointing a shotgun at him. What the hell are you? No living being could have withstood that amount of attacks without dying, she stated shakily. Naruto looked at her before smiling darkly. Do you honestly want to know it? I would have to kill you when you find out. He finished twisting his smile. The Asari quickly returned with her companions, terrified by the smile that Naruto was giving. Then he said, Counselor, it's time to start. I've motivated them enough. After that, Naruto snapped his fingers, and his clothes changed to new ones, surprising those present substantially. Now he wore black ANBU pants and sandals, a black shirt with its respective ANBU white vest on the top, black fingerless gloves, a coat of red color with black flames with his ever-present kamas. Within his sheath that he had tied around his waist, he had a Japanese katana of 65 centimeters. However, before they could say anything because of this, everybody heard Tevo speaking. The test will start at my order. You must kill the person in front of you by any means. I repeat, you must kill the person in front of you. With that said, Tevo stepped back. She was already convinced, but she needed something more so that the other members of the High Command of Thesha could believe in 100% on the Reaper threat. For that reason, she looked back at the screen that showed the place where the Asari and Naruto were, and Naruto noticed that some of them had regained control, although some of them still retained a bit of doubt after their biotics attacks had failed. One of them said as she stepped forward, pulling away the fear that she previously had. I see. Surely you were part of some kind of human experiment to have an advantage against the biotics. I see, that was the reason they brought you here. The counselor found out about it, and now she wants us to kill the only one of your kind. We won't let them retrieve you. A human immune to biotics is a serious problem. You humans have been quite problematic since your discovery of the mass relays. You've been colonizing every habitable planet in your path, which led you to war with the Turians, and then with the Batarians. But we won't let that happen, we'll avoid it by killing you, she stated. Many felt recovering the spirit at these words, so they nodded as they prepared themselves to kill Naruto, who chuckled and continued. Undoubtedly, you are very perceptive. You guessed on everything. However, do you want to know how I was able to get this immunity? He asked. No one said a word, they only began to aim at him, ready to attack when they heard Tevo's order. However, they were looking at him as if they wanted to know the reason for his immunity. Naruto smiled when seeing those expressions and decided to answer. Well, it's very simple. He made a small pause before continuing. I ate 20 or more Asari until my body got immunized on its own. When he finished saying that, Naruto smiled, showing to everyone his elongated fangs as he licked them and sucked his fingers. The mental image of Asaris being devoured by Naruto certainly terrified several of those present, while others felt nauseous. However, everything that Naruto had said was false, as he wanted to frighten them again because they had recovered a little bit of their courage after the Asari had uttered those words. In the place where Thesha's authorities were, many felt horrified by such a statement, and Tevos could hear the following. Counselor! Is it true what the human has just said? If it is, any kind of alliance with the humans will come to a halt. Tevos looked at her and shook her head. No, he's only up to something. But I can't tell what. Naruto is a very enigmatic person, but I assure you that nothing he said before is true. I had the pleasure of speaking with him before this began. He is a very wise and intelligent person. He would never do something like that. He must have a reason to say that, but I don't know. We'll have to wait until he tells us what he has in mind, she answered, and the Asari nodded, now calmer. Tevos then returned to the console and pressed the button to start the combat. Nevertheless, before that could happen, Naruto added, And do you want to know what I'm gonna do? I'll play with you at the moment that Tevos gives the order to start. After that, I'll take you with me to eat you later, he stated as he twisted his smile again. Some of them took a few steps back, getting away from the psychopath in front of them. And Naruto could feel that Tevos was about to give the order. Hence, he took a step back to say, But before that, I'll teach you something. After that, he stood in a taijutsu stance and continued. First, shinobi tactical knowledge, Taijutsu! Just as he finished saying that, everyone heard Tevo's voice giving the order to start the test. Therefore, everyone moved their fingers to press the triggers of their weapons. However, before they could, they saw Naruto running towards them at an impressive speed and start to strike to each of them. They received no harm from Naruto's blows since he had only put the necessary strength to put their shields down. The Aseris did not even have the time to press their triggers since Naruto had been so fast that he left them without any kind of reaction. They could only realize that Naruto had neutralized their shields and barriers. They only had their armors as protection, while their shields recharged. Naruto, on the other hand, had no desire to let that happen. Therefore, he stopped and once again was visible to the dazed Aseris, who heard the following. Second Shinobi Tactical Knowledge, Kenjutsu! Then all of them saw him pulling his katana out and running straight at them again. Shoot him! Someone shouted, aiming to where Naruto was while raising her shotgun to shoot him. Nevertheless, when trying to do so, she saw that half of her shotgun had fallen. What the hell? She yelled. She looked around and realized that her partners experienced the same too. Some of them, afraid, approached one another while making barriers between them in an attempt to keep Naruto away. However, Naruto reappeared, but inside of one of those barriers, which frightened the Aseri who were inside. They tried to shoot him with their handguns, which he didn't cut, but Naruto was faster and gave each of them a kick that knocked them out of their barriers. The others, upon seeing Naruto again, drew their handguns and began firing at that place, but before the bullets hit him, Naruto had jumped in the air while performing some hand seals. Third Shinobi Tactical Knowledge, Ninjutsu! All looked up, just to see Naruto puffing his chest and pronouncing the words, Katan, Gokakyu no Jutsu! All of them then watched in horror as a giant fireball, which easily covered the entire area where they were, quickly approaching to their place. Many prepared themselves for the worst. Some of them had dropped their weapons in a signal of defeat, while others just wondered how a living being could do all these things, also waiting for their end. However, the technique was not powerful. It barely had any chakra. The attack was simply to put the rest of the protection that the Aseris had down, and they only realized of this when the technique hit them and noticed that just their armors had been weakened. It didn't even cause an explosion or lifted smoke. All traces of the technique were gone as quickly as it had been thrown. Many touched their bodies, incredulous that they had survived to something like that, while others could not help sighing in relief as they dried their foreheads because they had sweated a lot due to the fear of being roasted by the fireball. In the place where Thesha's leaders were, several were amazed, and one could not help saying, Extraordinary! It seems that everything you said were true statements, Counselor. Tevos turned her head, smiled and turned it again to look at the screen to see the outcome of the test. She felt that something big was about to happen, so she did not want to miss it. At the test site, Naruto had reappeared, this time, saying, It's still not the time to feel relieved, this is not over yet, he stated with a serious expression. Everyone quickly pointed with their handguns at him, but some of them could not help shivering by being at his presence. Just now they could realize that he wasn't an ordinary person. Therefore, one of them said, What are you? Why you can't be a human? Why you can't be a living being? She stated as her hands trembled a little bit. However, they trembled, even more, when Naruto looked at her. You're right, I'm not a human. I'm a shinobi, the last one of my kind. After that, they saw him closing his eyes and putting his hands in another strange position. Now, to finish this, I will teach you one last thing. Everyone was prepared to see another of his crazy techniques, or just see him disappearing. Then again, Naruto had something else in mind. Fourth Shinobi Tactical Knowledge, Genjutsu. After hearing those words, all of them felt a powerful pulse coming from them, as well as the leaders who were observing the test. Tevos had felt this before, and she thought that he would show them one of the visions of his world when the Reapers attacked it. Nevertheless, Tevos realized that she was wrong when seeing that she was somewhere on Thesha, specifically at one of its big cities. She noticed that she was in a pretty busy place. Many Aseris were walking the streets while others talked among themselves. A little further ahead she could see the other Aseri who had been watching the test, and those who had been inside said test, everyone quite confused since they did not know how they got to this place so suddenly. She noticed that now she could move freely, unlike the last time that she had control over her head only. Therefore, she tried to approach the others, but she saw the need to look up when she heard noisy horns coming from the skies. Surprisingly, she saw dozens of reapers descending from there and firing their powerful beams at Thesh's buildings, destroying them and bringing them down towards the pedestrians on the streets. She ran as far as she could to take cover, as well as the others Asari who had come with her since all this looked absurdly real. "Counselor! What's going on? What are those things?" she heard someone asking her. She turned around and saw one of the matriarchs that were in the observation room. This is not real. Naruto is just proving something," she nervously replied. Everything looked so real that she was beginning to doubt that it was an illusion. The desperate screams, the noise of the guns, the shattering of the buildings, the gunships trying to do something against those huge ships, everything seemed too real. Further ahead, the Asari and the test were there. They didn't know what was happening either, and denying that they were terrified would be an understatement. Seeing their planet being attacked in this way caused a lot of desperation in them, as they could only contemplate the destruction by these powerful machines. Fortunately, the rubbles of the buildings didn't reach them. Even so, they moved to an even safer place while helping the civilians to take cover, or at least, they tried to do so until the Asari noticed that they began to receive enemy fire. They looked to where the shots were coming from and saw some of the most bizarre and horrible creatures that they had ever seen. Some of them were collectors, others were husks, and some of them were Asari-like, but they could tell that they weren't of their kind. They were very different, almost as if they were some sort of machine. The first thing they did was throw their biotics powers in an attempt to stop them, but it didn't work. They guessed that they had barriers or shields. Thus, they threw more biotic attacks to put their shields down, and fired their handguns because Naruto's katana had cut the other ones. They did as much they could, but their weapons were too weak, and the enemy's shields were too high. So soon, they ran out of ammo and were exhausted due to the overload of their attacks, which led them to be cornered by the enemy. Tevos and the other leaders also tried to help, but they were cornered much earlier since they didn't have any kind of weapon. So they had tried, without any effect, to attack the enemy with their biotics powers, until they had been surrounded by them, like the rest of the Asari commandos. They took their hands behind their heads in surrender signal, but the Reaper's ground troops grabbed them before going towards long spikes, completely ignoring what they did. However, the Asari soon knew it when they saw other Reaper's troops impaling Asaris in said spikes, turning them into one of them in a few seconds. Most of them panicked, some of them tried to escape, and others threw their biotic powers once again. But everything was completely useless, the Reaper's troops didn't even flinch. So they could only watch helplessly as their comrades were impaled and then converted into those machines. And when Tevos was about to get her turn, she gave a desperate scream. "Naruto, it's enough!" She instantaneously felt that the whole place began to vanish until after a moment she fell to her knees, putting both hands on the lawn of the meadow where the commandos were having the test. She did not care how she had gotten to this place. The only thing she cared about was that vision was finally over. Subsequently, she gave a sigh in relief as she slowly got up. She felt someone touching her shoulder. She turned her head and saw Naruto, who offered his hand to help her up. "Counselor, I'm sorry for going this far. But I needed them to see. I needed them to understand." Tevos nodded and told him not to worry, but then she looked at the others and saw that they were still lying on the ground. "Are they dead?" she asked with some concern. Smiling, Naruto answered. "There's nothing to worry about, Counselor. They're still within that illusion. That's why they didn't get up yet." Tevos turned her head to the right and asked again. "So, wasn't it a premonition? Was it just an illusion and nothing more?" Naruto nodded. "Yes, it was just that. However, it was a scenario of what could happen when the Reapers arrive. It was a test to see their reactions, and frankly, I'm disappointed," he stated. Tevos was about to ask the reason for his disappointment, but Naruto spoke before. "But I'll tell you why when they wake up, so I'll do it now." After that, Tevos saw him crossing his fingers. "Tajikage Bunshin no Jutsu. Tevos heard, and instantly several Narutos appeared, in equal amounts to the Aseris who were on the ground. Tevos' eyes almost popped out due to the impression when seeing so many of them. She already knew that Naruto could do something like that, but she never imagined that he could do it in that amount. The clones, after being created, slowly approached to awaken the Aseris from the genjutsu. Although no one had chakra networks, Naruto had learned to subdue individuals within his genjutsus by altering their nervous systems, to the point where they saw what he wanted them to see. The clones then normalized their nervous systems and took a few steps back after doing it, seeing that many Aseri gave sudden gasps while others started to cough loudly. The clones did not disappear since Naruto had also created them for another reason, which the main clone would shortly explain, just when all of them were reassured. It took a bit since some were quite shocked after being in Naruto's genjutsu. Although it helped little to their recovery when they saw that they were surrounded by the clones of Naruto, who just a few minutes ago had threatened to eat them. Once everyone recovered consciousness, the main clone stepped forward. "This way, please. Don't pay attention to my clones." He attracted the attention of all those present. The Aseri looked at him with fear, but Naruto continued. "First of all, I must apologize for my attitude towards you a few minutes ago. Just so you know, nothing I said was true. I've never eaten an Aseri. Moreover, it was only a few days ago that I met your kind." One of the matriarchs, who still seemed a bit shocked, stepped forward to speak. "So what was the reason to say something like that? Why did you scare the commandos in such way?" This time, Naruto started walking through the crowd, very slowly. "I wanted to see if it would affect you what a poor man could say. If a few nonsenses and twisted smiles are enough to scare you, then I'm afraid to say that many of you will die just when the war starts." The commandos did not understand which war he meant, but they were now calmer because he did not want to eat them. Even so, they felt quite intimidated by being surrounded by so many clones of the person who made them look ridiculous. "Which war?" One of the commandos found the courage to ask. Many turned to her, but then turned to Naruto again. Naruto, with a serious expression, placed his eyes on her. "You already saw it, that war," Naruto replied. Now they understood it, but one of them could not help asking, "What was that we saw? It seemed very real. Was it something that will happen?" Naruto looked back at Tevos, who nodded and answered her question. "As everyone has already noticed it, Naruto is a very special person. He can do things that not even I could imagine, and that which you saw was one of his special abilities, as he had told me before. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be worried about what we saw." That was a scenario of what could happen in a few years when the Reapers arrive. Many brought their fingers on their chins, and another Aseri asked, "The Reapers are real? I thought the Citadel Council concluded that the attack on the Citadel was by Saren and his Geth, not the Reapers. They informed us that all evidence indicated that the Geths made the attack." Tevos lowered her head for a moment, a little embarrassed because of it. However, she rose it again and answered, "Well, we were wrong. And that mistake has cost us 2 years of preparation. Now we must prepare ourselves for the imminent invasion. There's no time to lose." And with that said, she crossed her hands behind her back as she stood firmly. Naruto nodded to it and continued, "Thank you, counselor. And thank you for touching that issue. Tell me, what did you feel when you realized that your biotics powers and weapons didn't work against me?" he asked. One of them replied, "In my opinion, I was quite terrified. I've never seen anyone doing all that you've done. I thought that I would die. So I just waited for you to do it. An enemy who is not affected by biotics, and who is so fast that not even the bullets can hit it. That's something that would definitely cause despair to anyone." Many nodded to it, and Naruto as well. But even so, he decided to continue. "Please come here," he said, pointing to the place right before him. The Aseri shyly did it, but after a few seconds, she was standing before him. "What do you want me to do now?" she asked. "Try to hit me," Naruto replied, standing firmly. "It won't war." "Just do it," Naruto interrupted. The Aseri sighed and then clenched her right fist to throw a punch at Naruto, who blocked it with ease. It did not surprise anyone, but it caused curiosity when they saw him shaking his head a few times. No, not like that. Try to hit with enthusiasm. As if you really wanted to, he said, releasing her fist. The Asari nodded and then stepped forward to try it again, but this time with several slow and weak punches that made Naruto shake his head again. He told her to return to her place. Okay, all of you. Get close to one of my clones and try to hit them, he ordered in a serious voice. The Asari nodded because now they saw Naruto as a kind of superior officer. Hence, they all approached to a clone, including the leaders since Naruto had also asked them to do it, which included Counselor Tevos. After a few seconds, Naruto told them to hit his clones. As he expected, no one did it, but only a few of them had displayed a decent taijutsu. Still, it was still weak and practically useless. It was as if they almost had no knowledge of close combat. Therefore, Naruto ordered everyone to stop and come together, uttering a few words. As I feared. I hope you don't get angry with this comment, but I must tell you this. He paused and then stated. You are weak. That bothered some of the commandos, but no one dared to claim him about it. Only one dared to speak. That's easy for you to say it. You're not normal, and we're mere mortals. You're like a god of war. It's obvious that we'll be weak to your eyes, she said, getting nods from almost everyone. Naruto instantly changed his expression to one of annoyance. He clenched his fist and lifted it, which scared the Asari as she thought he would attack her. Much to her relief, Naruto merely lowered his fist in denial signal and continued. No! That has absolutely nothing to do. You're weak compared to the other species in your galaxy. You have almost no physical strength. You exclusively depend on your biotics powers. And you saw what happens when your powers don't work. What would do if a Reaper squad with heavy armor surround you, and you no longer have any ammo? Would you allow them to kill you or turn you into one of them just like that? Would you give up without even trying? He exclaimed, which taken aback the Asaris due to the power of his voice. He was not angry, he just wanted to prove that they were wrong. Then he continued, seeing that they had begun to reconsider his words. So he breathed deeply and continued after releasing the air from his lungs. Obviously, your answer will be a no. You will use any means to survive. After all, that's what we organics do, survive at all costs, he stated, taking his hands behind his back. Many nodded, and Naruto continued. So what do? You struggle to survive. But how? He paused, and when he saw that someone would answer, he made a stop sign. The Asari remained still, listening. Naruto continuing. With these. Naruto continued, squeezing his arms tightly. There's nothing more reliable than your own arms and legs. They will save you from most situations that you could imagine. And if you don't believe me, ask a Krogan. Why do you think they were released in the war against Arachne? Because they were the damn heavyweights of your galaxy. A weapon can fail or run out of ammo, but an accurate punch in the head of your enemies can cause more damage than you could imagine, he stated. But we're not Krogan. We don't have the physical strength that they have, one of the leaders countered. Naruto shook his head and replied. Physical strength is not essential. Yes, it's important. But it's not paramount. The important thing is to know how, where, and when to attack. If you master these three principles, then physical strength will be the last of your worries. Many nodded again, and Naruto continued. Obviously, I'm not saying that you should always attack your enemies in this way. Of course not, there will be enemies that a punch won't hurt them. This is just so you're ready, the ammo is not unlimited, and there will be times when you will need to put your enemies down with your own hands. He paused again, and then continued. But doing so won't be easy, as you will be exposed to enemy fire when charging towards them. That's why you must use tactics to approach them and finish them while you're invisible. A few people thought he meant the tactical cloak that the infiltrators used, but before they could confirm this, they saw Naruto carrying his hand in his ninja bag and pulling two small balls of purple color out from there. After that, they saw astonished when he created a shotgun out of nowhere. He had just raised his left hand and a blue flame, that made the weapon appear, surrounded it. But nobody said anything about it because they saw him throwing the shotgun to one of the Asaris, who quickly caught it. Try to hit me with that, Naruto said after he saw her receiving it. The Asari had her doubts. But you're too fast. It won't work, she answered. I won't move like that this time. I will move at normal speed for you. Try to hit me on my signal, he replied, and saw the Asari nodding as he commanded the other Asaris to step aside. Therefore, after a few seconds, he gave her permission to shoot. The Asari tried, but in an instant, Naruto had thrown those balls to the ground, and these had exploded when doing contact, completely covering the area of a purple smoke, completely blocking her vision. She fired a few times to the smoke, but she was not sure if she had hit Naruto. Although she got her answer after a few seconds, when she saw Naruto coming out from the smoke, right in front of her. She tried to shoot him once again, but Naruto had hit the gun slightly over the top, lowering it inches and diverting the shot that was directed to him. After that, Naruto kicked the right wrist of the Asari with the base of his sandal, making her drop the weapon. Finally, he punched her in her stomach, which made her fall to the ground. This is how you should, Naruto said after finishing his demonstration. The Asari slowly rose up. It didn't hurt her since Naruto didn't hit her hard, as he had no intention of doing so. However, she was grateful because she learned some things from participating in the explanation. As to grab her weapon for the next firmly if she did not want that something like this happened again, and then end up with a hole in her head. Naruto then returned with Tevos and said to finish, "That would be all. I created these clones so that they teach you the basics of combat and supply you with a few smoke bombs so that you can practice among yourselves. Just so you know, I won't give you advanced training. You must learn that on your own. My clones will help you, but to some extent. Then you must help each other to overcome your weaknesses. So, we'll do this the next time again, and hopefully, you won't disappoint me," he said, but with a half smile. However, the commandos had taken it very seriously. "We won't, sir!" all exclaimed in unison while saluting Naruto, who also did the same. After that, they lowered their hands and Naruto continued. "That would be all. Now go and train as much as you can. And you," he said, pointing to his clones, "don't do other stuff. Remember why you were created," he said with a serious look. "Meh, you are a killjoy. You just think that you're important because he created you, but you're just another lackey of the real boss. You have no moral right to order us anything," replied one of the clones, which made all the other clones nod. However, the main clone replied, "Well, I'm sorry to tell you, it's not under discussion." The clones looked at him but then sighed in defeat. "Killjoy," they said it in unison. Then they called each Asari and asked where they could go to practice. They did it, and went with their respective clones to where they should go, excited because they could learn a little more about the enigmatic person that Naruto was. The main clone then looked at Tevos and continued, "Very well, counselor. My work here is done. If you'll excuse me, I must retreat to another place. By the way, remember that this is a secret. I'm sure that Tevos had already told you. But it never hurts to say it again." After that, he took a swing and was about to go to Omega when he heard Tevos' voice saying, "Wait. Will you not even stay to discuss the points of the future alliance?" she asked, seeing that some of the leaders had come to them, nodding to the words of Tevos. However, Naruto shook his head. "Sorry, counselor. But that's not my job. If you want to discuss those issues, contact with Commander Shepard. I had a sole purpose in this place, and I've performed it," he answered. Tevos just sighed, but then asked one last thing. "And where are you going?" Naruto smiled slightly and replied, "To Omega, to visit a new friend." Tevos thought for a moment until she recalled the words of Naruto when he was provoking the commandos. "To Aria? What will you do?" she asked interestedly. The clone smiled widely and answered, "Break the only one rule on Omega, hee." Tevos thought for a few moments until she remembered which the only one rule on Omega was, which made her open her eyes widely. "Don't tell me that you and she." The clone smiled and answered, "You can come and check it with your own eyes if you want to." He said it jokingly, believing that the counselor would not accept something like that, but he realized he was wrong when he heard, Well, I wouldn't mind, she replied, carrying her hands on her hips, smiling as well. Smiling, the clone stretched out his hand to her. Well then, come on. The boss may be angry when I disappear, but who the hell cares? Let's go. After that, the leaders saw Tevos taking the hand of the clone and disappearing in a swirled distortion along with him, surprising them again. What the hell was that? One of them asked, surprised. They looked at each other, obtaining no response. After that, they looked at the clones that had been waiting for them. Well, I guess you won't tell us anything, but I also guess that you want us to learn the same as others. But I warn you that we are somewhat rusty. Since we became leaders, we stopped getting involved in these things. Well, except for the matriarchs, they will surely give you some problems. The clones smiled but said nothing. They just nodded and approached them to go to their homes. Then the area remained empty, and the Aseris who had been there started doing what the original clone had recommended. Meanwhile, the clone and Tevos had reached Omega, the place where a more than happy Arya Tlok by the wonderful visit was. 9 a.m. on Surkesh. The test on this planet had been easier compared to Thesha's. After the Dalatrases and several members of the Special Tasks Group had gathered together, the test had started. Naruto just had to destroy some mechs and a few hectares of forest to make them grow again. That's what they unanimously asked. It seemed that the fact that he could make the trees grow had caught the attention of those present after Valorn had informed them about the events on the Citadel. Naruto sensed that they did that because they wanted to analyze the samples of the trees that he created, but he did not want to find it out since that would not be a problem. However, the problem came when some members of the STG said they wanted to make some tests to determine where his enigmatic powers came from. The clone allowed them to do it, as long as they didn't inject things into him. They did it quickly but were disappointed when they did not get any results that could answer their questions. It was normal, Naruto had accepted, but he never said he would share those secrets. Once they finished with that, Naruto shared with them small fragments of the Reaper invasion to his world. The reactions were visible, and the Solarians were more than willing to cooperate. After that, the clone said he was retiring and that the Commander Shepard would come to discuss the terms of a possible galactic alliance, which the Dalatrases had nodded, waiting for the arrival of the Commander after she finished her mission to destroy the Collectors. And as expected, this whole meeting was kept as secret. The clone didn't even have to mention it as the Solarians were like this by culture. Also, he didn't feel any indoctrinated presence, as the clone on Thesha. Therefore, he dissipated himself after saying goodbye to all those present, who were not very surprised by anything that Naruto did. They were just intrigued and eager to investigate the origin of his powers. 13 p.m. on Palaven. Things on Palaven went better than Naruto had thought. He believed he would be unwelcome due to the war that the Turians had had against the humans several years ago, but he realized that it was the opposite. They saw the humans' sacrifice to save the Citadel Council as something valorous and a reason to respect them. Shepard was also known as a splendid soldier. And the fact that she had killed Saren, who was one of the biggest disgraces among them for breaking his Turian honor, made the humans very well seen among the Turian military force and Turians in general. But even if he had been very well received, there was still skepticism among the Turians since they didn't believe that he could do everything that Sparatus had commented on the memory that he saw on the Citadel. The test was in the presence of the Primarch Fedorian, who wanted this to be done ASAP. Not because he was anxious, but because he was busy and had a lot to do. Still, he had some interest. There were also some members of the Turian hierarchy, and surprisingly, Garrus' father. A few hours before the test began, Garrus had talked to his father to explain him the situation. After all, his father was a good friend of the Primarch Fedorian, and he thought it would help Naruto to have some allies when starting the test. His father had carefully heard everything that Garrus had said. After that, he contacted with the Primarch and told him about the situation. He obtained a response that they would go to the place where they were now. Therefore, Garrus' father had prepared himself and then went to the agreed time to the test location, to start talking with the Primarch and Sparatus. He had not spoken with Naruto yet, as he first wanted to see if everything his son had said was true, but the connections were more than evident. He just wanted to confirm them. When the test started, Spiritus ordered Naruto to do some of these elemental attacks he saw in the vision. Naruto did it without hesitation, and after a few moments, he had already attracted the attention of those present. After that, he fought against some Turians and defeated them smoothly. This clone realized that the Turians didn't have biotics attacks, but they were splendid with their weapons, and above all, they were excellent strategists. They had come up with many strategies after they realized that Naruto was too fast as to be hurt by their weapons. Even though it didn't help much, the clone was more than satisfied as they didn't remain still and kept the calmness at every moment. The only downside was that they relied greatly on technology. He would make a remark on that point to the Primarch, but it would be a bit harder to train them due to the anatomy of the Turians, but Naruto liked challenges. Although it would be on another occasion since a few Turians were gathered. After a while, Spiritus approached to the clone and said, I was obviously wrong, and everything you said was true. However, to finish this, what if you show us one last thing? I still have some doubts. Naruto looked at him with a raised eyebrow and asked, And what would that be? Spiritus replied, I'd like to see you using one of those black balls that attract things to the skies. I saw that you ended up with dozens of Reapers with these attacks in the vision. If you can do that, I think everyone will be more than convinced. Hearing this, Naruto scratched his head. I don't know. That attack is dangerous. I could do it, but I warn you that the attack will use the soil and rocks from around. The hole that will remain would depend on the size that you guys decide the attack to have. The only one who knew what he was talking about was Spiritus, so they did not interfere. Spiritus brought his hands behind his back and answered, We are fairly away from the suburbs. There won't be problems. If you can do it, then I will trust you. Besides, something like that would be very helpful in the war against the Reapers, he stated. Okay, but I want everyone to stay 30 meters away from me, he answered. Why? A Turian asked. He didn't even have the slightest idea what Naruto wanted to do. Naruto turned his head, and everyone could see that his eyes had turned to purple color, as they watched him clasping his hands. Just precautions. After that, he looked straight ahead, ignoring the surprised stares by his sudden change of eyes. Regardless, the Turians took the distance that Naruto had asked. After that, Naruto sighed and uttered the words, Chibaku Tensei. Upon saying these words, Naruto opened his hands slightly, and a small black sphere appeared which went floating very rapidly skyward. Everyone could see the small ball, but they did not know what it was. However, they quietly waited since the counselor had said that it could be a trump card against the Reapers. But all of a sudden, the place shined brightly, and they felt that the earth began to shake. Seconds later, the earth itself began to crack while large pieces of rocks slowly floated towards the small black ball in the sky. It did not grow much since Naruto was doing it just for demonstration purposes. Besides, he had no desire to use something as flashy as that. He was just doing it because the counselor had asked him to do it as lasting proof to believe in his words. Afterward, Naruto undid the Chibaku Tensei and returned the fragments of land to their respective locations. Upon finishing, the Turians came to him, including the Primarch, Spiritus and Guru's father, who asked him what he did. Naruto did not provide many details. He just told them it was a skill and a tool to destroy the Reapers. In the end, the Turians were convinced and said goodbye to the clone, who had told them that Shepherd would pass by here someday to talk to them or would meet with Spiritus at the Citadel. However, before he could leave, Guru's father told him to send his greetings to his son. The clone had nodded, and then they all saw him disappearing in a puff of smoke. Therefore, the few ones who had gathered returned to their posts, while the counselor, the father of Gurus, and the Primarch continued discussing what Naruto had done and the possible alliance that could take place once Shepherd reached Palaven or spoke to the counselor at the Citadel. On the Normandy's cockpit. It was just 8 in the morning in the place where the Normandy was, which was the Serpent Nebula. All the crew had returned to their posts after waking up very early. In the cockpit, Naruto was talking about some issues with EDI, under the watchful gaze of Joker. After a few minutes of talking, Naruto said to finish, And that's what I have in mind, EDI. Do you think the modifications would be possible? He asked. EDI started making noises, analyzing Naruto's suggestions. It took her about 1 minute to Joker's surprise, as she did hundreds of thousands of checks just to be sure, and also because Naruto's ideas were almost impossible to achieve by conventional means. Consequently, she had to analyze the probabilities before reaching a verdict. But when her analysis finished, she answered. My analysis indicates that there will not be any problems, Naruto-san. Analyzing what the commander and the crew members have seen you doing thus far, I see no impediments to implementing your ideas. Naruto smiled and said, Well, that's great. Now, so that I can do this, I'll need you to tell the elusive man that I'll need the blueprints of the Normandy. Tell him that I want them within an hour. Oh, and by the way, EDI, could you get me an Omni tool? I'll tell Shepard to teach me how to use it. As you wish, Naruto-san. I will get the Omni tool that suits you best, EDI's figure answered. In addition to what she had said, EDI knew that Naruto had put the elusive man under control, but she did not care. She would simply transmit his words, and it would depend on the elusive man whether he accepted it or not. But EDI's calculations indicated that there were a 90% of chances that the elusive man would do what Naruto ordered. Joker returned to his controls and wearily asked, with his right elbow on the armrest of his seat and his fist on his right cheek. I've hardly understood anything of what you have spoken. But why are we still here? I thought the commander would want to go elsewhere after her date. That's why I've undocked from the Citadel, but no, she hasn't said anything at all. Sigh. Naruto at this raised an eyebrow at Joker. How do you know that? Joker smiled and turned his chair to him. Well, everyone on the ship knows it. Gurus told us about it after buying his new armor. Besides, that girl Kasumi was spying on you during your date, and uploaded the video of the date in the Omni tools of everyone. After that, he turned his Omni tool on and showed his favorite part of the video. It was when Naruto made the Krogan start talking like a robot. He chuckled and then turned his Omni tool off to hear Naruto say, I already thought that I could feel her when we were eating. But I didn't think she was doing something like that. That's right. I still haven't introduced myself to her. I should go and say hello now before Shepard wakes up. Joker smiled and was to add something else when he noticed that the sensors of the Normandy turned on. Immediately, the people on the bridge informed Joker that a dreadnought of the Alliance was heading towards them. And before Joker could ask why, he saw through the window on the left side of the cockpit that an Alliance vessel had suddenly appeared. That alerted Joker, since he thought that perhaps the Alliance got tired that they were working with Cerberus. What are they doing here? Joker nervously asked. Good question, Naruto added, looking through the window at the great ship. He had no desire to find it out on his own. He would just wait for them to say their intentions. The next thing he saw was that the ship connected itself with the Normandy by the boarding gate. On the bridge, a woman said, Joker, we've got a priority message from Admiral Hackett, requesting to come aboard. The commander is still sleeping. Wait. EDI, tell the commander about this, Joker said, now turning his chair to EDI's figure. However, before EDI could agree, Naruto spoke. I'll tell her. Don't worry. After that, they saw Naruto floating and going through the ceiling of the ship. Joker shook his head and added, That guy will never know what being discreet is. But in the end, he smiled as he communicated to the Alliance vessel that they would receive their answer in a moment. Moments earlier, in Shepard's cabin, she had begun to open her eyes slowly. Barely, and she had woken up. She carried her hand on her forehead. Arg, how much did I drink last night? She asked herself while rubbing her forehead. After that, she got up from her bed and walked to take a shower while thinking. What happened last night? She asked once more, trying to remember the details of the evening. The hangover was the reason for her sudden loss of memory for the events of a few hours ago. However, as she turned the shower on and felt the first drops of water falling on her, she slowly began to remember all the details of her evening with Naruto and the subsequent talk they had in her cabin. She started soaping her body while sighing over the outcome of the conversation. However, this time, Naruto had not told her to stop thinking about it. Rather, he had very clearly said that it was still too soon. In a way, those words made Shepard smile slightly as she took her towel to put it on. She opened the door and left the bath to go to her bed, seeing that Naruto was lying there. Naruto, noticing that she had left the bathroom, he quickly got up to sit on the edge of the bed, just to hear Shepard saying, "What are you doing here?" she asked, standing right on the edge to down the stairs. She realized that this time, it was he who looked her up and down, which made her smile to herself. However, she said nothing and waited for the response of Naruto, who, after doing a complete analysis to Shepard's figure, decided to answer. What was it? Ah, yes. I came to tell you that Admiral Hackett requests permission to come aboard, he replied, watching Shepard walking down the stairs while a few drops of water fell to the floor. She went to her closet and there said, "Close your eyes." Naruto smiled and replied, "I wouldn't miss this, not even crazy." Shepard smiled back, but she answered in a serious voice, "You just do as I say, or I will throw you out the airlock." "Yes, ma'am," Naruto replied with a smile and closed his eyes to continue. "But you better hurry, because I could open them at any time." "Well, open them," Shepard replied, and Naruto instantly did so, seeing that she was completely dressed. "That was fast," he said, watching her. She now wore a casual black outfit. Shepard just smiled and then activated her Omni tool. "Joker, permission granted." "Aye, Commander," Shepard heard Joker answering. "I wonder why he came?" Shepard asked, now looking at Naruto, who shrugged and replied, "I don't know, and I have no desire to find it out. But I don't feel bad intentions by anyone, maybe some misgivings because you work for Cerberus, but more than that, nothing." Shepard nodded but felt the need to correct something. "I don't work for Cerberus, Naruto. We're just cooperating because they were the only ones who wanted to investigate the Reapers. Maybe the Admiral came to talk about something like that. But I don't know, I'll go to see him now." "Shall we?" she asked, looking at Naruto, who shook his head. "Later, call me if you need me. I'm going to introduce myself to Kasumi. I'll ask her why she was spying on us yesterday during our date," Naruto replied. Shepard raised an eyebrow. "Was she doing that? Who told you?" she asked as she walked towards the exit along with Naruto. "Joker told me. Besides, Gurus told everyone we were on it when he returned from buying his new armor. But it doesn't bother me that they know it. I had a very good meeting with a beautiful woman. Also, I could eat ramen after several millennia," he added with a smile, looking at Shepard. Shepard had blushed slightly, but she had quickly pulled it away. "Yeah, I liked it too. But I think I forget my helmet and my gloves in that place. We'll have to go to the Citadel before continuing our mission. And I think we didn't pay the bill," Naruto added as they entered the elevator, seeing Shepard selecting the deck 2 and 3. "Well, I hope to have enough credits. I lost track of how much you ate after the 50th bowl," Shepard replied with a smile, watching Naruto, who added, 83 bowls to be precise. "Remind me to ask for more money from the elusive man the next time we go to eat," she answered. Naruto shook his head and replied, just as the elevator door swung open, "I'll invite next time. I already ordered an Omni tool to EDI to use credits when I get them, and you will teach me how to use it when we start your training in mine." Shepard nodded. "Okay, then we'll continue talking. I should go to see what the Admiral wants. If I need you, EDI will let you know." And then she came into the deck 2 to go to the communications room while Naruto went to the deck 3 to introduce himself to Kasumi. Shepard had instantly heard Kelly saying that the Admiral was waiting for her in the communications room, so without further ado, she went there. Upon entering the room, she saw the Admiral carefully watching the room, but stopped when he heard the door opening. He saw Shepard coming in the room before giving him a salute, which he responded. "Commander, I'm glad to see you alive," Hackett said in the middle of the salute. Then they both lowered their hands, and Shepard replied, "I was just indisposed for a while. But I've already returned to kick some asses," she stated with a smile. Hackett smiled as well and added, "I bet you will." Shepard stopped smiling and then curiously said, "I didn't expect to see you aboard a Cerberus vessel." Hackett shrugged and replied, "I don't like Cerberus or the way they do things. But they brought you back to life, and they're actually doing something about the state of the galaxy. So, for now, I can be friendly." Shepard nodded and then continued. I see, but I don't think you stopped doing whatever you were doing just to see my health condition. What's the reason for your visit? She curiously asked. Hackett shook his head and replied, taking his hands behind his back. No, that's not the reason. The real reason is that I've heard encouraging news. Shepard leaned up against the wall and asked, Did Anderson tell you something? Hackett nodded. Yes, Anderson informed me about the events of yesterday barely you left his office. If what he said is true, then we have much more hopes to win this war. That's why I came. I wanted to meet personally with the man who can destroy a Reaper with his bare hands. Although I think it's incredible, I don't believe that neither Anderson nor you would lie in something like this. Shepard nodded and then said, staring at the ceiling of the ship, EDI, could you call Naruto, please? Right away, Commander. EDI's voice replied. Hackett, to hear that voice, looked with a questioning expression at Shepard. An AI? Don't worry, Admiral. It doesn't pose any threat. Everything is under control. Shepard quickly replied. I trust your judgment, Commander. You have nothing to worry about. I just found it interesting, Hackett added. When he had said this, they both heard the door of the room opening, and Hackett could see a man who perfectly matched with the descriptions given by Anderson. Did you call me, Shepard? Naruto asked as he approached. Naruto, he's Admiral Hackett. He has come to meet you personally, Shepard said as he looked at Naruto and pointed with the palm of her hand to Hackett, who was looking very carefully to Naruto, who approached at his position. Nice to meet you, Admiral, Naruto said, stretching out his hand. Hackett instantly stretched his hand out, and then they shared a shake of hands. The pleasure is mine, son, Hackett answered. Naruto smiled and then moved away from Hackett, who spoke again. I can see that Anderson's claims were correct. After this handshake, the doubts went flying from my head. Why do you say that? Shepard curiously asked, not knowing why. I can't explain it with certainty. But I felt something inexplicable when we shake our hands, Hackett replied. Naruto scratched his head and replied. Well, what happens is that I live too much. I have accumulated a lot of power that I have barely used, and when someone enters into direct contact with me, they can feel some of that power. Shepard also told me that she felt something like that sometimes. But trust me, I'm solving that problem right now. I don't want to get noticed. It's not convenient. At least not yet. Just then, Naruto received the information of 2 of his clones, so he decided to continue before they said anything. Oh, I'm sorry, but I have good news. My clones that were in Surkesh and Palaven managed to convince the leaders of these planets. Commander, you only have to go to their planets and discuss a galactic alliance. Though I don't know why my clone Anthesha didn't vanish yet. He paused as he closed his eyes to see what that clone was doing. He instantly shook his head due to the explicit images that came to him. However, he said nothing about it since he saw Tevos there. Therefore, that made him conclude the following. Forget it, the Aseris are cooperating too. Hackett nodded and said, That's undoubtedly a good news. If you have managed to convince the leaders of these 3 races, then the path to take will be easier. Now we just have to convince the Batarians and the Krogans. They would undoubtedly provide a good increase in our forces if they join us. But I see it difficult due to the resentments from the past, but all in good time. I'm sure you 2 will find a way to make them help us. The other 2 nodded and then Hackett said, Anderson also informed me that you will go to Earth one of these days to have a test there. Commander, send me a message when you go. I also want to be there. I will, Admiral. We will go when Anderson frees himself from all the work that he has on the Citadel. He said he was busy, and therefore, he couldn't go. Shepard replied, and Naruto decided to add. Speaking of that, Admiral Hackett, I would like that the Alliance gave me the blueprints of their vessels and ships in general. It's for something important. Hackett raised an eyebrow. Why would you need something like that? In addition, I think it would be a bit difficult. If it were up to me, then I would hand them over as I'm sure that you would give them a good use. However, you must know that if I say that the blueprints are for people who are cooperating with Cerberus, then I'm sorry to say that it would be hard to get those blueprints that you've asked me. However, Naruto shook his head but thought of something. I'll show you what I have in mind. After saying those words, Shepard saw that Naruto did the same demonstration of the creation of the little bird when they were in her cabin. Wonderful! Hackett said after seeing the bird appearing and starting flying to settle down on his right shoulder. He moved his index finger and stroked it softly, realizing that it started chirping. While he was doing this, Naruto continued. I plan to do something like that, but on a larger scale and with your frigates. I've learned from Shepard that you've lost many of your forces in the attack of the Sovereign. For that reason, I will help you recovering those ships. That will be my demonstration when we get to Earth after Counselor Anderson is ready to go there. Hackett, after hearing all that, stopped stroking the bird to watch them. If you can do that, then I'll do my best to get those blueprints. Maybe if I call in a favor, it wouldn't be so difficult. He paused, realizing that now Shepard and Naruto were smiling at each other. That called a bit of his attention. However, he ignored that and decided to move on to another topic. By the way, what your next move will be, Commander? Hackett asked. Shepard took her fingers on her chin while thinking. Then she answered. I must first go to the Citadel to pay a bill and withdraw some things that I forgot there. After that, I should go to Purgatory and search for a new crew member. Purgatory is a maximum security prison. I don't know who this recruit is, but surely it must be good enough so that Cerberus has bothered to include it in your dossier. Hackett added, and Shepard nodded. Naruto, however, decided to speak. Shepard, don't worry. I'll bring your items back. You don't need to return to the Citadel and waste more time. I'll go and then I'll come back to the ship. Shepard thought about it but then nodded. Okay, but you'll need an Omni tool to make the payment. No, wait. She paused while putting her hand into her pocket. Then she took out a kind of coupon and handed it to Naruto. Here, it's a coupon for 10,000 credits. I don't think the bill will be that much, but that should be enough. You can keep the rest of it if you wish it. You can also open a transactional account with the rest at the Citadel. By the way, you can buy an Omni tool at a store, and you'll be ready to enjoy this galaxy to the fullest, she said, smiling. Naruto saw the coupon and noticed it was empty, but before he could ask how he should use it, he saw that Shepard activated her Omni tool and instantly the number of credits appeared on the coupon, exactly 10,000 credits. There, that should be all, Shepard said to finish. Naruto smiled and then kept the coupon inside one of his pockets. Thank you, Shepard. If you both will excuse me, I'll retire. I'll go to pay the bill for what we ate yesterday and then I'll send a clone so that it brings the parts of your armor that you forgot while I open my transactional account. By the way, Admiral, you can keep that bird if you want. Then Naruto said goodbye and retired from there, entering inside his kamui to reach in an instant to the place where the ramen stand was. That was surprising, Hackett said after seeing how Naruto left. Then he stroked the small bird on his right shoulder. Shepard smiled and answered. Don't worry, he's like that. But he doesn't do it on purpose. Anyway, Admiral, I have a question. I'm hearing, Hackett replied and stopped stroking it. Shepard rubbed her neck while saying, Is the Alliance prepared for a Reaper invasion? She finished with a raised eyebrow. Hackett took his fingers on his chin and answered. That's hard to say. It took multiple fleets and the Destiny Ascension to bring Sovereign down. And that was just one Reaper. If the Reapers come in force, we're just not ready, he said, shaking his head. Shepard nodded regretfully at those words, but Hackett continued. But we both know very well that our hopes are higher than before. With a man like Naruto on our side, we may have the advantage. Especially if we get Naruto to build the vessels that he promised. I'll do my best to get those blueprints as I command more recruits to be trained for those ships. Shepard smiled and added. He told me he would be able to replicate the Normandy in exactly 30 minutes if he wanted to. Surely it would take him about 2 hours with a dreadnought of the Alliance. But I don't know. What I do know is that it will be a very good and impressive demonstration when we go to Earth to convince everyone that the Reapers are not a game. That's something I'd pay to see. Now, Commander, I would like to ask you a personal question if it doesn't bother you, Hackett asked. Shoot, Shepard answered, and Hackett nodded. Is there something between you two? He earnestly asked. Why do you think so? She asked with some interest. Shepard, I have lived long enough to recognize easily when a woman is in love with someone. Those smiles and the brightness in your eyes every time you talk to him is the one of a woman in love, he answered. Shepard sighed and then nodded. Yes, I am. It's weird. At first, I only saw him as a person who would help us winning the war against the Reapers. But that changed quickly. It's hard to explain, I just know that it happened. She paused. Although Naruto feels nothing for me, I'd just say that we are just comrades. She finished. Hackett stared her for a few seconds before expressing the following. Are you sure of that? Why do you ask that? Shepard replied, interested. I've also seen something similar in his eyes. When he entered the room, and I saw him for the first time, I saw the eyes of an empty man, who only lived for a sole purpose. I assume that this purpose is to destroy the Reapers and avenge his people when the Reapers invaded his planet. But when you spoke, and he looked at you, I could see that some brightness returned in his eyes, as if you had been the beam of light that illuminated the abyss of darkness in which he has been since who knows when. I don't know how his eyes looked like the first time you saw him, but from what I've seen, I can say that you are the person who gives him a purpose besides destroying the Reapers. Shepard nodded, surprised at those words. She had never noticed that since she had never stopped to analyze it. But now that she thought it, Hackett was right. His eyes looked dull at first, but they had gradually regained their brightness as they spent time together. And today she noticed that his eyes were glowing. Maybe something that they had spoken last night in her cabin had touched him, but she couldn't be sure, and she neither wanted to ask. Shepard had decided to wait and give Naruto his time. She could not rush these things. Time would determine whether there might be something between them or not, but for now, the best thing was to wait for Naruto to adapt to those things and think about it. However, Shepard was curious about something, so she decided to ask. I have never seen it in that way, Admiral. But now that you mentioned it, I think you're right, and thank you very much for letting me see, although I'm curious about something. Why your sudden interest in us? Hackett smiled slightly and replied. Because you're the best soldier in this galaxy, and I also respect you very much. It's not as if I don't want you to have a relationship, it's the opposite. We all deserve to settle down at some point in our lives, have something else to fight for. Furthermore, I empathize with that man. I can only imagine what he had to go through to get where he is now. Living so long completely alone is certainly a curse, he stated. Shepard nodded, and Hackett continued. But I would only tell you to fight for what you want. But I don't think I need to tell you that. After all, you're the Commander Shepard. Anyway, enough of talking about your personal life. I will return doing my things. I'll go to get those blueprints for the test on Earth, and I will send someone to bring them here ASAP. See you, Commander. Good luck in your fight against the Collectors. Then they shared a handshake, and Hackett returned to his ship along with the little bird, to do what he was doing before coming here. Meanwhile, Shepard went to the galaxy map to set course to Purgatory. Once she did it, Joker started the ship, and Shepard spoke. EDI, tell Zaid and Kasumi to get ready for our next mission. EDI assented, and Shepard walked to her cabin, to put her armor on while waiting for Naruto to bring the rest. She would also take advantage of the moment to talk to Kasumi. She also wanted to know why she spied on them. When Shepard arrived at her cabin, she noticed that her helmet and gloves were already on her bed. There was no trace of the clone, however. Surely it had dissipated just as it left her things, so she shrugged, went to her closet, put her armor on, and then the rest of it. Finally, she went to the cockpit to wait there while arriving at Purgatory, to recruit Jack, also known as Subject Zero. Chapter end.
Now watch daily exclusive and censored lemon stories and mature content, along with NSFW images, featuring harem girls characters from the fics. Access all this and more on my Patreon. Click the link in the description to explore.